The message arrived at 2:17 in the afternoon. Just another ordinary email notification, except this one detonated my entire life. I'm Daniela, and 15 minutes ago, I was mindlessly scrolling through work emails while waiting for my mother-in-law's weekly lunch interrogation about grandchildren to end. Now I'm staring at photos I wish I could unsee. My husband's naked back arched over a woman I recognize from his law firm's Christmas party. Daniela, dear, are you even listening? Maggie's voice cuts through my mental fog. I was saying that at your age, waiting much longer could be risky. My fingers tighten around the phone. The screen shows Ryan and Chloe in his office, on his desk, in a hotel room. Timestamps, dates, locations, all meticulously documented by someone who clearly wanted me to know. I need to use the bathroom, I managed to say, my voice steadier than I expect. The restaurant's bathroom is mercifully empty. I lean against the marble counter, studying my reflection. Same face, same carefully applied makeup, same pearl necklace Ryan gave me for our 5th anniversary. Everything looks identical to an hour ago, yet nothing is the same. My phone buzzes again. Another email from the anonymous sender. Thought you should know. They're planning a weekend in Vegas next month. He's using your joint account to book it. The bathroom door creaks open. Maggie. Of course. Darling, you've been in here for 10 minutes. Are you feeling unwell? I straighten up, tucking my phone away. Just a migraine coming on. Oh, that's terrible timing. Ryan's joining us for dessert. He said he could slip away from work early. Work. The image of his office desk flashes through my mind, and bile rises in my throat. Actually, I should head home, I say, gathering my composure. Rain check on dessert? Maggie's disappointment is palpable. But Ryan, specifically? Tell him I'm sorry. The words taste bitter. Women's troubles. It's the one excuse that always makes Maggie retreat, her traditional sensibilities unable to handle such discussions. She pats my arm sympathetically and lets me escape. In my car, I pull up our bank statement. There it is, a recent payment to a travel agency. The Vegas trip isn't just a threat, it's already in motion. 7 years of marriage, and I never once thought to question his business trips or late nights at the office. My phone rings. Ryan's face appears on the screen, probably wondering why I'm not waiting with his mother for dessert. I let it go to voicemail. Instead, I drive to our house, the perfect suburban home we spent months choosing together. The same house where he promised we'd raise our family. The same house where he's been lying to my face every single day. I park in the driveway but don't get out. Another email notification pings. This time it's a video clip. My thumb hovers over the play button, but I can't bring myself to press it. Some things you can't unsee. The front door of our house looks different now. Behind it lies a life I thought I knew, a marriage I believed in, and a husband who's probably calling me again, wondering why I'm not playing my usual role in his perfectly orchestrated life. I check my rearview mirror and notice my lipstick is still perfectly in place. Funny how some things stay intact while others shatter beyond repair. My phone buzzes again. Another call from Ryan. This time I answer. Let's see how well he lies when I ask about his plans for the weekend. After all, what's one more performance in this theater of deception we call marriage? The game is about to change, and he doesn't even know it yet. 3 days of pretending everything's normal feels like 3 years. I've memorized every detail of Ryan's routine, watching him perform his role of devoted husband with Oscar-worthy precision. The way he kisses my cheek before leaving for work. How he asks about my day while scrolling through his phone. The casual mention of another late meeting. Tonight's performance includes a family dinner at his parents' house. I sit at Maggie's pristine dining table, pushing food around my plate while she chatters about the neighbor's new grandchild. Sarah's daughter had the most beautiful baby shower, Maggie says, refilling wine glasses. Such lovely traditions these days. When are you two finally going to give me some good news? Ryan's fork pauses halfway to his mouth. Mother, we've discussed this. I take a long sip of wine, studying him over the rim of my glass. Actually, I've been thinking about that lately. Maybe it is time we seriously tried for a baby. The silence that follows is delicious. Ryan's face doesn't change, but his knuckles whiten around his fork. Really? Maggie claps her hands. Oh, Tom, did you hear that? Tom glances up from his plate, his eyes moving between Ryan and me. He's always been more perceptive than his wife. That's unexpected, Ryan manages. We should discuss this privately, dear. Why? We're family. I reach for his hand across the table. Unless there's some reason you're hesitant? His fingers are cold in mine. Of course not, just surprised by the timing. Speaking of timing, I turn to Maggie. Did Ryan tell you about his upcoming business trip to Vegas? Vegas? Maggie frowns. You didn't mention... It was just confirmed today, Ryan interrupts. Standard contract negotiation. With Chloe Marshall? The name drops like a stone into still water. I saw her name on the travel booking. Ryan's recovery is impressive, but I catch the slight tremor in his voice. She's handling the real estate aspects. How convenient? I release his hand and stand. Excuse me, I need some air. The back porch is my refuge. Behind me, I hear Ryan making excuses about work stress and hormones, the same tactics he's used for years to dismiss my concerns, paint me as emotional, unreasonable. The porch door opens. It's Tom, carrying 2 glasses of bourbon. Thought you might need this, he says, offering me one. I accept, surprised. Tom rarely drinks and never initiates conversations. You know, don't you? I ask. He leans against the railing, looking out into the darkness. I've known Ryan his whole life. He has his mother's talent for performance, but his tells haven't changed since he was 12. And you never said anything? Would it have helped? He takes a slow sip. Some truths need to be discovered personally to be believed. Inside, I hear Maggie's voice rising, probably defending Ryan against some imagined slight on my part. The perfect son, the successful lawyer, the man who can do no wrong. I received some interesting emails recently, I say. About Ryan and Chloe, with photos. Tom nods slowly. Anonymous sender? Yes. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? He meets my eyes for the first time. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do for someone is to help them see the truth, even if it hurts. Before I can respond, the door opens again. Ryan stands there, backlit by the dining room lights. Mother's serving dessert, he says, his tone carefully neutral. Everything okay out here? Perfect, I reply, finishing my bourbon. Your father was just telling me about your childhood. Apparently, your tells haven't changed much since you were 12. Ryan's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. He glances at his father, who simply walks past him back into the house. We should talk when we get home, Ryan says quietly. About babies? Or about Vegas? I move closer, close enough to smell his cologne. Or maybe about those interesting emails I received? His face pales slightly, but his lawyer's mask stays firmly in place. Whatever you think you know. Save it for the performance inside, I cut him off. I'm not your audience anymore. I brush past him into the dining room, where Maggie's serving her famous apple pie. Time to enjoy the last act of this family charade before the curtain falls. And Ryan? He has no idea that his father just became my most unexpected ally in this unfolding drama. The private investigator's office smells like stale coffee and resignation. Sandra Chen slides photos across her desk, each one a fresh wound in my already bleeding reality. They meet 3 times a week, she says. Usually at the Mayflower Hotel, sometimes at her apartment in Riverside. I pick up a photo of Ryan and Chloe entering the hotel lobby. His hand rests on the small of her back, intimate and possessive. The timestamp shows Tuesday afternoon, the same day he told me he was in court. There's more, Sandra continues, hesitating. Your husband made some interesting financial moves recently. She pulls up documents on her laptop. Bank transfers, property records, a new LLC registration. The numbers blur together, but one detail stands out. A down payment on a condo in Chloe's building. He's planning his exit, I say, my voice hollow. Most cheaters are impulsive. Your husband is methodical. Sandra leans back. He's been moving money for months, setting up a separate life. My phone buzzes. Ryan's mother. Again. I silence it without looking. The Vegas trip next month? I ask. It's not just a weekend getaway. They're meeting with a real estate agent, looking at properties. Of course, building their perfect little life while systematically dismantling mine. The rage I've been suppressing bubbles up, hot and acidic. I need a drink, I announce, standing. There's a bar around the corner. The owner, Mark, he's good people. Tell him I sent you. The bar is nearly empty at 3 p.m. The owner, Mark, looks up as I enter. He's not what I expected. Younger, with kind eyes and an easy smile. Sandra Chen send you? He asks, already reaching for a glass. That obvious? She only sends me the interesting ones. He pours something amber and expensive looking. On the house. You look like you need it. I take a sip. The whiskey burns pleasantly. My husband's building a life with another woman while gaslighting me about having children. Damn. Mark pours himself a shot and raises it. To karma. Karma's too slow. I clink my glass against his. I prefer revenge. He studies me for a moment. You know, I hear things in this bar, including some interesting gossip about a certain lawyer and his real estate agent girlfriend. My glass freezes halfway to my lips. What kind of gossip? The kind that suggests their perfect little plan might have some cracks. He glances at the door as new customers enter. I get off at 8 if you want to hear more. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Ryan. Where are you? Mother's been trying to reach you about dinner plans. I type back, working on our future. You'd know all about that, wouldn't you? His response is immediate. What's that supposed to mean? Another round? Mark asks, noticing my empty glass. Actually, I need to go handle something. I stand, steadier than I expected. But I'll be back at 8. Be careful, he calls after me. People who have everything to lose tend to fight dirty. I drive to Ryan's office, fury and whiskey warming my blood. The security guard knows me, waves me through with a smile. Ryan's secretary tries to stop me. He's in a meeting, but I push past her. The conference room door swings open. Ryan and Chloe jump apart like guilty teenagers, but not fast enough. The other partners around the table freeze in awkward silence. Darling, Ryan recovers first. What a surprise. Oh, don't stop on my account. I smile at the room. I just wanted to see where all our money was going. Nice condo, by the way. The one in Riverside? The color drains from Ryan's face. Chloe drops her pen. We should discuss this privately, Ryan says through clenched teeth. Why? Isn't everyone here in on the secret? I turn to leave, then pause. Oh, and Ryan? Don't bother coming home tonight. I'm changing the locks. As the elevator doors close, I hear the chaos erupting behind me. My phone starts ringing. Ryan, probably damage control, but I silence it. Mark's words echo in my head. People who have everything to lose tend to fight dirty. Good thing I've already lost everything. Now it's my turn to fight back. Mark's bar has become my sanctuary over the past week. Tonight, he slides a manila envelope across the counter before I can even order. Guy came in looking for you, he says. Said he worked with Ryan back in law school. Inside the envelope, I find medical records from 10 years ago. Ryan's name jumps out, along with terms like azoospermia and permanent infertility. The date precedes our marriage by 2 years. He knew. I whisper. All this time he knew. Mark wipes down the counter, giving me space to process. 7 years of fertility treatments, specialists, and Maggie's constant disappointment. 7 years of Ryan suggesting maybe the problem was with me. My phone lights up with Maggie's latest text. Found a wonderful fertility specialist. Dinner tomorrow to discuss? You okay? Mark asks, his voice gentle. He let his mother torture me for years. I drain my glass. While he was perfectly aware we'd never have children. Maybe that's why he started sleeping with Chloe? I laugh bitterly. No, that's just bonus betrayal. The bar door opens. Tom walks in, looking out of place in his expensive suit. I thought I'd find you here, he says, settling onto the stool beside me. Ryan's telling everyone you're having a breakdown. Did he mention he's infertile? That he knew before we got married? Tom's expression doesn't change, but his fingers tighten around his briefcase. No, he failed to mention that detail. How long have you known about Chloe? 6 months. He orders scotch, neat. I confronted him. He swore it was over. And the condo in Riverside? That's new information. Tom takes a long sip. Maggie's planning an intervention. She thinks you're imagining things, having some sort of crisis. Of course she does. Ryan's perfect son would never betray his wife, never lie about something as fundamental as his ability to have children. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Sandra. Need to meet. Found something big. I have to go, I tell Tom, gathering my things. Daniela. He catches my arm. Whatever you're planning, be careful. Ryan's partners are already discussing damage control. Let them try. I pause at the door. You might want to warn Maggie that her perfect son isn't who she thinks he is. Sandra's waiting in her car 2 blocks away. She hands me a tablet without preamble. Remember that LLC I mentioned? It's not just for the condo. She swipes through documents. Ryan's been funneling firm money through it. Lots of money. He's embezzling? Smart way to hide funds from a divorce. Not so smart when you're stealing from your partners. The pieces click together. The late nights, the secret accounts, the sudden interest in real estate. How much? Enough to end his career. Sandra takes back the tablet. Question is, what are you going to do with this information? My phone lights up with another call from Ryan. This time I answer. Where are you? His voice is tight with controlled anger. Mother's worried sick. I'm learning all sorts of interesting things about you, I reply. Like your medical history, and your creative accounting. Silence. Then, come home, we can discuss this privately. No, I don't think we will. I watch Sandra pull away into traffic. But I'm sure your partners will have plenty to discuss tomorrow morning. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your email in 5 minutes. I hang up, then forward Sandra's documents to every partner at his firm. Back at Mark's bar, I find Tom still nursing his scotch. It's done, I tell him. He nods slowly. Maggie will never forgive you. I'm not the one who needs forgiveness. I sit down, suddenly exhausted. But I am the one who's going to make sure everyone knows the truth. Mark sets a fresh drink in front of me. To Karma? No, I reply, thinking of the documents now spreading through Ryan's firm like wildfire. To justice. My phone starts ringing again. Ryan's name flashes on the screen, but this time, I simply turn it off. Tomorrow will bring its own battles, but tonight, I've finally taken back control of my story. The law firm's lobby buzzes with barely contained chaos. Partners hurry through security, phones pressed to their ears. Junior associates whisper in clusters, shooting furtive glances my way as I stride past reception. Mrs. Harrison, you can't. The secretary's protest dies as I push open Ryan's office door. He's on the phone, suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, the perfect image of a man under siege. "I'll call you back," he says, seeing me. "Close the door." I do, but not before catching glimpses of security guards moving our way. "Quite the morning?" I ask, noting the scattered papers across his usually immaculate desk. "You have no idea what you've done." His voice is deadly quiet. "The managing partners are talking criminal charges." How unfortunate. Almost as unfortunate as lying to your wife about being infertile while watching her endure years of fertility treatments. He flinches, barely noticeable. "I was protecting you." "From what? The truth? Or from leaving you when I realized you'd never give me children?" A knock interrupts us. Through the glass wall, I see two partners waiting. Ryan holds up one finger, buying time. "Whatever you think you know," he starts. "I know everything." I pull out my phone, showing him the medical records, including how much money you've been stealing. "Tell me, does Chloe know she's your exit strategy, or is she just convenient cover?" His mask slips, revealing something ugly underneath. "You want to play hardball? Fine. But remember, you signed a prenup. You'll leave this marriage with nothing." I laugh, the sound sharp enough to cut. Check Clause 7. Infidelity nullifies everything, and I have proof, Ryan. So much proof. The door opens. "Ryan, the SEC is on line 1, his secretary announces. "1 minute, he snaps, then turns back to me. "What do you want?" "Everything." I move closer, dropping my voice. "The house, half your assets, and a public admission of what you did. All of it." "You're insane." "No, I'm angry, and I'm done being your victim." My phone buzzes, a text from Mark. "Chloe's here. Says she needs to talk. Important." "Security's coming to escort you out," Ryan says, straightening his tie. "Don't make this messier than it needs to be." Too late. I head for the door, then pause. "Oh, and Ryan? Maggie's waiting in the lobby. I told her everything about your medical history. She's quite eager to discuss grandchildren." The color drains from his face as I walk out, passing the security guards with a smile. In the lobby, Maggie sits rigid in a chair, her perfect posture a shield against the whispers around her. "Is it true?" she demands, standing. "Ask your son about his medical records from 10 years ago." I keep walking, her sharp intake of breath following me out. Mark's bar is quiet this early. Chloe sits at the counter, looking nothing like the polished woman from the photos. Her hands shake as she clutches her purse. "Tell her," Mark says gently. Chloe pulls out a plastic stick, a pregnancy test. Positive. "It's not Ryan's," she whispers. "It can't be." The irony hits me like a wave. All those years of trying, and here sits the other woman, pregnant by someone else while carrying on with my infertile husband. Does he know? She shakes her head. "I just found out. But when I saw the news about the firm, I can't be connected to this. My real estate license." My phone lights up with messages. Tom, Sandra, Ryan's partners. The storm I've unleashed is gathering strength. "What are you gonna do?" Mark asks, his eyes meeting mine in the mirror behind the bar. I look at Chloe, at her trembling hands and smeared mascara. At the test that proves every lie Ryan ever told me. At the weapon that could destroy him completely. "That depends," I tell her, sliding onto the next stool. "How badly do you want to save yourself?" The choice crystallizes before me, complete destruction or calculated mercy. But as Chloe starts to talk, I realize this stopped being about revenge the moment she walked in with that test. Now it's about justice. And justice, I'm learning, is far more satisfying than revenge. The police lights paint our perfect suburban house in alternating red and blue. Two officers flank Ryan on our front porch, while he gestures dramatically, playing the victim perfectly. Behind him, Maggie dabs at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Mrs. Harrison? An officer approaches my car. We need you to step out. I comply, aware of the neighbors watching from behind curtains. 7 years in this community, and now I'm the morning entertainment. Your husband claims you've been harassing him, the officer says. Says you leaked confidential company information and made threats. Interesting. I keep my voice steady. Did he mention the embezzlement investigation? Or his affair? This isn't about that, ma'am. He's filed for a restraining order. The words hit like a physical blow. Of course he has. Ryan always knew how to work the system, how to twist reality until he came out looking clean. I live here, I say. This is my house. Not anymore. Ryan's voice carries across the lawn. The firm's pressing charges, Daniela. Criminal charges. You might want to call a lawyer. My phone buzzes. Sandra. They're freezing your accounts. All of them. Call me ASAP. Mrs. Harrison? The officer's hand hovers near his cuffs. I need you to leave the premises. Maggie steps forward, her perfect mask cracking. How could you do this to us? To Ryan? After everything we've done for you? I laugh, the sound bordering on hysteria. Everything you've done? Like torturing me about grandchildren while your son kept his infertility secret? You're lying. But her voice wavers. Ask him about his medical records from 10 years ago. Ask him about the money he's been stealing. Ask him about Chloe's pregnancy. Oh wait, that's not his either, is it, Ryan? Ryan's face contorts. Officer, she's clearly unstable. You have 30 minutes to pack some belongings, the officer interrupts. After that, you can't return without a court order. I walk past them into the house, their whispers following me up the stairs. In our bedroom, no, his bedroom now, I grab essentials, clothes, documents, the flash drive containing copies of everything Sandra found. My wedding ring catches the light as I reach for my passport. 7 years of lies, compressed into a simple gold band. I twist it off and leave it on his pillow. The officer escorts me out like a criminal. Ryan watches from the porch, his arm around his mother, the perfect son consoling her in this difficult time. Where will you go? Maggie calls out, her voice thick with false concern. I don't answer. My car feels like a cage as I pull away, watching my life disappear in the rearview mirror. Mark's bar is closed this early, but he answers my knock. One look at my face tells him everything. He's trying to have me arrested, I say, dropping my bag. Froze my accounts, filed a restraining order. I can't go home, can't access my money. Breathe. He guides me to a stool. Start from the beginning. There's no beginning anymore, just an end. My hands shake as I pull out my phone. Sandra says they're building a case against me for corporate espionage. Ryan's spinning everything. The affair, the embezzlement, all of it. Making me look crazy. What about Chloe? The pregnancy? She won't help, too scared of losing her license. I laugh bitterly. Turns out revenge just gives him more ammunition. Mark starts to respond, but my phone interrupts. Tom's name flashes on the screen. They're searching your office, he says without preamble. Ryan told the partners you've been stealing company information for months. They're calling clients, warning them about potential breaches. The room spins. My career, my reputation, my home, everything I built, gone in a morning. He's going to win, I whisper after hanging up. He's going to take everything and make me look like the villain. Mark's hand covers mine. Not everything. What's left? The truth. He pulls out a laptop. And the truth has a funny way of demanding to be heard. I stare at the screen, at the blinking cursor waiting for words. Maybe he's right. Maybe when you've lost everything, the only thing left to do is tell your story. And make damn sure everyone hears it. The SEC investigators arrive at Ryan's firm exactly at noon. I watch from Mark's car as they enter the building, followed by local police. My phone lights up with a text from Sandra. "It's happening. Stay ready." "You sure about this?" Mark asks, gripping the steering wheel. Before I can answer, Chloe's silver Mercedes pulls into the parking lot. She spots us and walks over, her designer heels clicking against the asphalt. "They're questioning everyone," she says through the window. "Ryan's telling them I was involved in the embezzlement." "Are you ready to tell them the truth?" She touches her stomach, still flat beneath her silk blouse. I have nothing left to lose. The next hour unfolds like a carefully choreographed dance. Chloe enters first, armed with documents proving Ryan manipulated her real estate licenses for his schemes. Then Tom arrives, carrying files from Ryan's early days at the firm, patterns of behavior stretching back years. Finally, my phone buzzes. Sandra. He's cornered. Now, I walk into the firm's conference room where Ryan sits surrounded by investigators, his perfect facade cracking. He looks up as I enter, and for a moment, I see real fear in his eyes. "Mrs. Harrison?" one investigator says. "Your husband claims you orchestrated this entire situation out of revenge." "Did he also tell you about his medical records?" I place the decade-old documents on the table. "About lying to me for 7 years while I underwent fertility treatments?" Ryan stands abruptly. "This is irrelevant to—" "Or about using Chloe's real estate license to launder firm money?" I continue. "Though I suppose that's complicated now that she's pregnant with another man's child." The room goes silent. Ryan's face contorts. "You're lying." "The pregnancy test is positive," Chloe says from the doorway. "Want to explain how that's possible, given your medical condition?" Ryan lunges for the documents, but an investigator blocks his path. Through the glass walls, I see Maggie arriving, Tom at her side. The audience for Ryan's final performance is complete. "Everything I did," Ryan's voice shakes, "I did to protect this family's reputation, to give Mother the grandchildren she wanted." "By stealing from your partners?" Tom's quiet voice cuts through the room. "By destroying your wife?" "You don't understand!" Ryan turns to Maggie, desperate. "I had to maintain appearances. The family name—" "The family name?" Maggie's voice cracks. "You let me torture that poor girl for years about grandchildren while knowing—" She stops, pressing her handkerchief to her mouth. "Mrs. Harrison," an investigator interrupts, "we'll need your full statement." "Of course!" I meet Ryan's eyes. "I'll tell you everything, about the embezzlement, the affair, the medical records, about how he tried to frame me when I discovered the truth." "Daniela, please." Ryan's mask finally shatters completely. "We can fix this. Whatever you want. The house, money, anything. I want the truth, all of it. No more lies, no more perfect facades." He slumps in his chair, defeated. Behind him, through the glass walls, I see partners gathering, watching their golden boys fall from grace. "Mr. Harrison," an investigator says, "I think it's time we continue this discussion downtown." As they lead Ryan out, Maggie touches my arm. "I'm so sorry," she whispers. "I never knew." "None of us did," I reply. That was the point. I walk out of the firm for the last time, past the whispers and stares. Mark waits in the car, and beyond him lies a future I never planned for, but now welcome. My phone buzzes one last time. A text from Ryan. "You've destroyed everything." I type back. "No, you did that yourself. I just exposed the truth." Then I delete his number and turn to Mark. "Take me home." "Which home?" he asks. I look at the firm's building, at the life I'm leaving behind. wherever the truth is. He starts the car, and as we pull away, I realize that revenge wasn't what I needed after all. Just the simple, devastating power of the truth. The courthouse steps feel different under my feet today. No more pretending, no more perfect masks. Ryan's sentencing hearing just ended, and the morning headlines already scream about the Golden Boy's fall from grace. I pause at the top of the steps, watching Maggie and Tom hurry to their car, dodging reporters. They've aged years and months, their carefully maintained image crumbling with each new revelation about their son. "Mrs. Harrison!" A reporter shoves a microphone toward me. "Any comment on your ex-husband's sentencing?" Before I can respond, Mark appears at my side. "No comment," he says, guiding me through the crowd. My phone buzzes. A text from Chloe. "Thank you for everything. Baby girl is doing great. She moved across state lines months ago, rebuilding her life far from Ryan's shadow. Sometimes karma works in unexpected ways." "Ready?" Mark asks as we reach his car. "One more stop." The bar is quiet this early. Sandra waits inside, spreading documents across our usual table. The final divorce settlement, the sale of the house, the restoration of my assets. Freedom, quantified in legal terms. "You sure about this?" she asks as I sign the last paper. I glance at the newspaper on the counter. Ryan's face stares back. No longer the confident lawyer, but a man in prison orange, convicted of embezzlement and fraud. "The money's better spent helping others," I say, finalizing the paperwork that will turn our former home into a women's shelter. "Let something good come from all this." Speaking of good things, Mark sets 3 champagne glasses on the table. "A toast?" "To what?" Sandra asks. "To truth," I say, thinking of all the perfect lies that shattered under its weight. "And to letting go." The champagne bubbles tickle my nose, but I don't drink. Can't, actually. Not for another 7 months. Mark's hand finds mine under the table, and I think about the irony. How desperately I once chased the dream of family with a man who could never give it to me, only to find it naturally with someone who never demanded perfection. The door chimes. Tom walks in, looking older without Maggie's carefully coordinated outfits beside him. "I hoped I'd find you here," he says, settling heavily onto a stool. "Maggie's finally agreed to counseling. Seems we all had our parts in enabling Ryan's lies." "How is he?" I ask, though I'm not sure why I still care. "Angry, blaming everyone but himself." Tom sighs. But maybe that's what he needs. Time to face his own reflection without anyone smoothing over the cracks. Sandra gathers her papers, sensing the shift in conversation. As she leaves, she squeezes my shoulder, a gesture that says more than words could. "I wanted to give you something." Tom pulls out an envelope. "Found these while cleaning out Ryan's childhood room." Inside are photos. Ryan as a boy, already learning to perform, to hide behind the perfect smile. The last photo shows him at 12, holding a trophy but looking lost, desperate for approval. "I should have seen it then," Tom says quietly. "Maybe if I had—" "We can't live in maybes," I interrupt, sliding the photos back. "Only in truth." He nods, understanding. As he leaves, I notice his shoulders are straighter, unburdened by the weight of perfection. Mark starts setting up for opening, the familiar routine grounding me in the present. Through the window, I watch the city wake up, its rhythms unchanged by the dramas that unfold within it. "You never told him about the baby," Mark observes, not really a question. "Some truths aren't meant as weapons," I reply, thinking of Ryan in his cell, still believing he'd controlled the narrative of our marriage. Let him keep that last illusion. My hand rests on my stomach, where new truth grows. Not a replacement for what was lost, but a different kind of perfection. One built on honesty, even when it hurts. The morning light catches my bare ring finger as I help Mark prep the bar. No more golden bands, no more perfect lies. just real life, with all its beautiful, messy truth. And somehow, that's enough.
Sarah Thompson sighed deeply as she gazed out the kitchen window. She had just turned 38, and while she should still feel young, today she felt terribly tired. Outside, her 10-year-old daughter Emily was playing basketball with her husband Michael. Sarah smiled at the sight. "Mom, watch this." Emily's voice rang out. She dodged her father and scored. Michael was 40, but when playing with his daughter, he seemed to turn back into a boy. Sarah took a sip of coffee before heading to the living room. There, her mother-in-law Martha was quietly watching TV. Martha, who had recently lost her husband George, seemed to be sinking into grief. "Martha, would you like some coffee?" Sarah asked gently. Martha nodded slightly. "Thank you, Sarah. You're always so thoughtful." Sarah sat down next to Martha as she handed her the coffee. "Were you thinking about George?" Martha answered with a distant look in her eyes. "Yes, I still can't get used to life without him. After more than 40 years together." Sarah gently squeezed her mother-in-law's hand. George's death had deeply affected the entire family. Martha, in particular, was struggling to overcome the grief of losing her husband. At that moment, Michael and Emily came into the house. "Mom, Grandma, look. I beat Dad," Emily reported happily. Michael laughed as he wiped away his sweat. "This kid's really gotten good. I'm no match for her anymore." As the family conversation continued, Sarah remembered tomorrow's plans. "Oh, that's right. We need to start sorting through George's belongings tomorrow." At those words, the room's atmosphere froze for a moment. Martha said in a small voice, "Yes, it's been a month already, hasn't it?" Michael, immersed in memories of his father, said, "Dad's room is still untouched. We need to sort it out." Emily asked curiously, "Are there a lot of Grandpa's mementos?" Sarah stroked her daughter's head as she answered, "I'm sure there are." Grandpa was the type to carefully keep all sorts of things. The family spent a quiet evening, each harboring their own thoughts about tomorrow's task of sorting through the belongings. The next morning, Sarah woke up early and started preparing breakfast. Today was the day to sort through her father-in-law George's belongings. It was a big job for the whole family to tackle. "Good morning, Mom." Emily appeared in the kitchen with a sleepy face. "Good morning, Emily. Did you sleep well?" Sarah asked as she handed her daughter a glass of orange juice. Emily answered while stretching big, "Yes, but I woke up too early. I'm curious about Grandpa's room." Soon after, Michael and Martha also woke up. While having breakfast, the family discussed today's plan. "Let's start with the study," Martha suggested. George spent a lot of time there. Everyone agreed, and they started working right after breakfast. When they entered George's study, books, documents, and mementos were crammed everywhere. "Wow, Grandpa had so many books," Emily exclaimed in admiration. Michael looked around the bookshelf nostalgically. "Dad loved reading." The family divided up tasks and began sorting. Sarah was in charge of documents, Michael books, and Martha small items. Emily was assigned to organize the contents of her grandfather's desk drawers. About an hour into the work, Emily's voice suddenly rang out. "Hey, everyone! Look at this!" As the family turned around, Emily was holding a large leather-bound album. "It looks really old." Sarah walked over to her daughter. "Wow, what a beautiful album. It might have photos from when Grandpa was young." The whole family gathered around Emily and opened the album together. As they turned the yellowed pages, old black and white photos appeared one after another. "Oh, is this Martha?" Sarah pointed. The family smiled at the sight of a young Martha. As they turned the pages, Emily suddenly gasped. "Hey, is this me?" Sarah peered at the photo. There was indeed a girl who looked exactly like Emily. The same bright eyes, the same smile, and the same distinctive nose shape. But Sarah looked at the back of the photo. There was a date written there. 1973. This photo is from 50 years ago. As the whole family gasped in surprise, Sarah looked at her mother-in-law. Martha's face had turned pale, and her body was trembling slightly. "Martha, are you okay?" Sarah asked worriedly. Martha, not taking her eyes off the photo, said in a thin voice, "I can't believe it's here." The family was confused, looking at each other's faces. Martha's unusual reaction changed the atmosphere in the room. What secret could be hidden in this old photo? As a heavy silence fell over the room, Martha's trembling hand reached for the photo. Her fingertips gently caressed the girl's face as if stroking it. "Martha, who is this girl?" Sarah asked quietly. Martha took a deep breath and slowly closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there was a look of determination in them. "This girl is my sister." Her name was Carol Harrison. Martha's voice was hoarse. "Sister?" Michael exclaimed in surprise. "Neither Dad nor you ever mentioned having a sister." Martha smiled sadly. "Yes, our family hasn't spoken about Carol for many years." Emily asked curiously, "Why? If she's Grandma's sister, wouldn't that make her my great-aunt?" Martha heaved a deep sigh. "Yes, Emily. But Carol is no longer in this world." Silence spread through the room again. Sarah placed her hand on her mother-in-law's shoulder and gently prompted, "Martha, would you like to tell us? Please, teach us." Martha slowly nodded. "Yes, there's no need to hide it anymore. Carol died in an accident in the summer of 1973. "An accident?" Michael asked quietly. Martha nodded slightly. "Yes, an accident at the lake. Since that day, our family stopped talking about Carol." "But why?" Sarah asked curiously. Martha answered, choosing her words carefully. "Back then, it was different from now. A tragedy in a small town quickly became gossip. My parents wanted to protect the family from those rumors. And I. Her voice trailed off. And you, Mom? Michael prompted. Every time I remembered that accident, my chest would tighten. So I became afraid to talk about Carol. Tears glistened in Martha's eyes. Sarah gently squeezed her mother-in-law's hand. Martha, it must have been a really painful experience. Emily, staring at the photo, said, but she looks just like me. Martha smiled and replied, yes, you look very much alike. I guess blood will tell. Michael said with a confused expression, but why all these years? Dad never mentioned having a sister either. George understood how I felt, Martha explained. He promised to wait until I was ready. But before that chance came. Her voice choked up. The family listened to Martha's story, perplexed by the suddenly revealed secret. The truth that had been hidden for many years was gradually coming to light. That night, after the children had gone to bed, Sarah, Michael, and Martha gathered in the living room. On the table lay the album they had found earlier that day. Martha slowly opened the album and gazed at Carol's photo. In the summer of 1973. We were spending our summer vacation at the lakeside cottage with our parents, as usual. Sarah and Michael listened quietly. Martha's voice trembled slightly, as if calling up distant memories. Carol was 14, and I was 16, Martha continued. That day was especially hot, so we decided to swim in the lake. Our parents had gone shopping in town, so we were alone. Martha took a deep breath and continued. At first, it was fun. But then we started arguing. She closed her eyes, seemingly trying to face the painful memory. What were you arguing about? Michael asked quietly. Martha shook her head. Now, it seems so trivial. I think it was about a boy. We had both fallen for the same boy. Her voice was tinged with regret. I said something mean. Carol, crying, got into a boat alone and rowed out to the middle of the lake. Sarah gasped. And then. Yes. Tears glistened in Martha's eyes. Suddenly, a strong wind blew, and the boat capsized. I shouted desperately from the shore. But. Her voice broke off. Michael gently squeezed his mother's hand. Martha continued in a shaky voice, I couldn't swim. I couldn't save Carol. By the time I realized, it was too late. A heavy silence fell over the room. After a while, Sarah quietly asked, what happened after that? Martha heaved a deep sigh. Our parents came back, and immediately called the police and rescue teams. But Carol's body wasn't found until 3 days later. That must have been a truly painful experience, Sarah said, looking at Martha with sympathetic eyes. Martha nodded slightly. The whole town was buzzing with rumors about us. Why did she leave her sister alone? Why didn't she help? My parents never blamed me, but I couldn't forgive myself. So that's why you stopped talking about Carol, Michael showed understanding. Yes. My parents tried not to mention Carol to protect me. And I found it easier that way. Martha's voice was filled with deep regret. Sarah said thoughtfully, but by continuing to hide it, weren't you suffering even more? Martha smiled sadly. Yes. But being able to talk about it now, I feel a little lighter. Mom, thank you for sharing these painful memories, Michael said gently. Sarah understood how important this story had been for Martha. By revealing the secret she had been keeping for years, Martha seemed to be gradually lifting the weight from her heart. However, something still nagged at Sarah's mind. There seemed to be something unnatural about Martha's story. A few days after Martha's confession, various questions were swirling in Sarah's mind. While drinking her morning coffee, she made a decision. I'm going to investigate this further. That day, Sarah headed to the local library. She wanted to check old newspaper articles and town records. Upon arriving at the library, she approached a kind-looking elderly librarian. Hello. I'd like to see records from the summer of 1973. The librarian asked with a slightly surprised look. That's quite a while ago. Any particular reason? Sarah answered, choosing her words carefully, I'm researching family history. The librarian nodded understandingly and guided Sarah to where the microfilms were kept. After hours of searching, Sarah found a local newspaper from August 1973. There was a small article. 14-year-old girl drowns in lake. Sarah's hand trembled. The article contained a brief explanation of Carol's accident. However, next to it was another article. Tragedy strikes prominent local family. This article focused more on the Harrison family's social status than on the details of the accident. Sarah frowned. Why such an article? As she dug deeper, Sarah discovered an interesting fact. After the accident, the Harrison family suddenly left town and disappeared for a while. As Sarah left the library, her head was full of questions. Why did the Harrison family leave town? And why was their social status so important? On her way home, Sarah stopped in front of an old building. It used to be the police station. Maybe. Sarah gathered her courage and went inside. It's now used as a museum, but old records might still be kept there. Luckily, a kind curator agreed to show Sarah the old police records. With nervous hands, Sarah opened the records from 1973. There, she found a shocking testimony. According to an eyewitness account, Martha had pushed Carol off the boat. Sarah gasped. No way. In her mind, all the pieces started to rapidly fall into place. Martha's guilt, the family's sudden move, the newspaper article emphasizing their social status. Everything started to make sense. Sarah rushed home. She had to tell Michael about this discovery. However, she couldn't imagine how this revelation would affect the family. That night, after the children had gone to bed, Sarah called Michael to the study. Michael felt uneasy seeing the seriousness in her expression. What's wrong, Sarah? Sarah took a deep breath and told him everything she had discovered. The police records, the eyewitness testimony, and the conclusion she had drawn from it all. Michael's face gradually turned pale. "That's impossible, right? I don't want to believe it either." "But the evidence is too clear," Sarah said quietly. Michael suddenly stood up and started pacing around the room. Why would Mom do such a thing?" His voice was a mix of anger and confusion. "Michael, calm down." Sarah put her hand on her husband's arm. "How can I calm down?" Michael's voice rose. "Mom has been lying all this time. Aunt Carol." He choked on his words. At that moment, the door slowly opened. Martha was standing there. Her face was wet with tears. "I heard everything." Martha's voice was shaking. Michael stared at his mother and said with eyes full of anger, "Is it true, Aunt Carol?" Martha slowly nodded. "Yes, it's true." She collapsed into a chair. "That day, I was crazy with jealousy. Seeing Carol getting close to the boy I liked. You killed your sister for such a reason." Michael shouted. "Michael!" Sarah tried to stop him, but it was already too late. Martha covered her face with her hands. "I don't understand it myself." At that moment, my mind went blank. When I came to my senses, Carol was already in the water. She began to cry violently. A heavy silence fell over the room. Michael was shaking with anger and sadness, while Sarah looked at them both, at a loss for what to do. Now that the truth hidden for so many years had come to light, no one knew how this family should face it. The day after the truth was revealed, a heavy atmosphere hung over the Thompson household. Michael refused to speak to Martha, who had locked herself in her room. Sarah was running back and forth between family members, trying desperately to improve the situation. "Michael, please. Try talking to Martha," Sarah pleaded with her husband. Michael shook his head. "I can't right now. Not after." He choked on his words. At that moment, Emily entered the living room with a worried face. "Dad, what's wrong with Grandma? Why does everyone look so sad?" Michael and Sarah exchanged glances. Both were at a loss for words, unsure how to explain to Emily. "Emily, Grandma is feeling a bit under the weather," Sarah answered gently. Emily tilted her head. "But Grandma was crying. I heard her when I passed by her room." Michael inhaled sharply. Emily's innocent observation pierced his heart. "Emily, you see." Sarah started to explain, but Michael raised his hand to stop her. "Wait." Michael took a deep breath and said, "Emily, a long time ago, Grandma experienced something very sad. She's remembering that and feeling sad about it now." Emily listened with a serious expression. "Then we should comfort Grandma." Michael and Sarah stared at Emily in surprise. "Emily's right," Sarah said slowly. "We need to support Martha as a family." Michael remained silent, deep in thought, but eventually nodded slightly. Yes. Sarah knocked on Martha's door. Martha, Emily wants to see you. After a while, the door slowly opened. Martha's eyes were swollen from crying, but she managed a small smile when she saw Emily. Grandma, are you okay? Emily hugged Martha. Martha hugged her granddaughter back. Yes, Emily. I'm so glad you're here. Seeing this scene, Michael felt a tightness in his chest. He approached Martha and slowly extended his hand. Mom. His voice was shaking. Martha took her son's hand, tears welling up. Michael. I'm so sorry. Sarah felt a glimmer of hope as she watched the family come together. There was still a long road ahead, but she was certain they could move forward, one step at a time. Over the next few weeks, the Thompson family gradually walked through a healing process. Martha began seeing a psychologist, making efforts to face the guilt she had carried for years. Michael, too, though it took time, started to engage in dialogue with his mother more and more. One day after dinner, Emily suddenly asked, "Can you tell me more about Great Aunt Carol?" For a moment, the atmosphere in the room froze, but Martha slowly smiled. Well, Carol loved music. She was always humming a tune. Emily's question became a catalyst for the family to start sharing memories of Carol. Martha talked about the fun times she had with Carol, sometimes shedding tears, but trying to accept her sister's existence positively. Mom, I'm glad to hear about Aunt Carol, Michael said to Martha one day. Learning about her has helped me understand you better too. Martha teared up at her son's words. Thank you, Michael. I'm truly grateful that you've all accepted me. As Sarah watched the family's transformation, she also noticed Emily's growth. Through Carol's existence, Emily was learning about the complexity of family history and, at the same time, beginning to understand the importance of forgiveness. Mom, people can make mistakes, but it's important to acknowledge them and apologize, right? Emily said to Sarah one day. Sarah hugged her daughter. That's right, Emily. And don't forget the importance of forgiveness too. At the end of summer, the Thompson family visited Carol's grave. Martha laid a bouquet on the gravestone and spoke quietly. Carol. I'm sorry for hiding you for so long. I'll never deny your existence again. Michael placed his hand on his mother's shoulder, and Emily held Martha's hand. Seeing this scene, Sarah felt that the family bond had grown stronger through the ordeal. On the way back, Emily looked up at the sky and said, "Do you think Great Aunt Carol is watching over us?" "I'm sure she is," Martha answered gently. "And we'll keep Carol in our hearts too." The Thompson family had overcome the sorrows of the past and were bound together by new ties. They learned to accept their family history, learn from it, and become a stronger, more compassionate family.
The owner of a hotel took in a beggar in one of her rooms for some time. One day the owner entered the room without knocking on the door and couldn't believe what the beggar had been capable of doing. On the cold night in Boston, the evening breeze blew with a cutting chill that seemed to freeze the bones. In the small square in front of Hotel Baker, a solitary figure lay on a wooden bench, her body wrapped in a thin, tattered blanket that did little to protect her from the cold. Stephanie Morris, with her tangled hair falling over her pale face, slept restlessly, her dry lips slightly open in a whisper of discomfort. The blanket barely covered her thin body, dressed only in clothes that looked more like rags than proper attire for the weather. From time to time, Stephanie shivered violently, and her eyes opened quickly as if expecting something or someone to emerge from them. Her stomach growled, a deep sound competing with the murmur of the wind. She placed her hand on her belly, a futile attempt to silence the hunger pains that constantly struck her. Suddenly she sat up, staring at the illuminated facade of the hotel in front of her, her eyes reflecting a mix of admiration and resentment. "Another night," she murmured to herself, her voice hoarse from dehydration. "They are warm and well-fed inside, and out here, life isn't worth a penny." At that moment, a couple passed by her, hurriedly wrapped in luxurious coats, completely ignoring her. Stephanie watched them, a pang of envy and despair mixing at the sight of the indifference with which people treated her. It was as if she were part of the urban landscape, an element as common as the pigeons pecking at crumbs on the square's ground. Cynthia Baker was finishing her workday in the office on the second floor of Hotel Baker. As she passed by the window overlooking the square, her gaze was involuntarily drawn to a solitary figure huddled on one of the benches. She approached the window while observing the woman curled up under rags, clearly unprepared for the cold weather. It was a scene that deeply moved Cynthia. She knew many life stories crossed the doors of her hotel, each with its challenges and sorrows, but seeing someone so vulnerable right in front of her establishment was something she couldn't ignore. "This isn't right," she murmured to herself as she stepped away from the window, determined to do something about it. Cynthia descended the hotel stairs with firm steps. With each step, her resolve strengthened. Upon reaching the reception, she took a spare key to one of the simpler but comfortable rooms and walked out the front door. The night air was colder than she expected, and she pulled her coat closer as she crossed the street towards the square. "Ma'am?" "Excuse me," Cynthia said, crouching to be at eye level with Stephanie. "I'm Cynthia, the owner of the hotel there," she said, pointing to the illuminated building behind her. "I can't leave you here in this cold. I would like to offer you a room at the hotel to warm up, take a bath, and eat something." Stephanie looked at her suspiciously, clearly unaccustomed to kindness. "Why would you do this for me?" she asked, her voice weak but tinged with caution. Cynthia smiled gently, her expression soft. "Because it's the right thing to do. You seem to need help, and I'm in a position to offer it. Come, let's take care of you." She extended her hand, waiting for Stephanie to accept it. Hesitant but driven by the biting cold and the promise of refuge, Stephanie finally placed her hand in Cynthia's. Together, they crossed the street back to the hotel, where Cynthia guided her through the warmly lit reception and to a room on the first floor. Opening the door, she showed a cozy space with an inviting bed and a small bathroom. "You can use the shower as long as you need. I'll have some clean clothes and something to eat brought to you." As Stephanie entered the room, still a bit shocked by the turn of her luck, Cynthia promised herself that she would do more to help others like Stephanie. Perhaps this night would be the beginning of something new, not just for Stephanie, but for her as well. Cynthia is a respected businesswoman, known for her generosity and dedication to the well-being of her employees and guests. She stands out not only for her business acumen, but also for her humanistic approach to managing her establishment. Respected in her community and in the hotel industry, Cynthia is known for her unwavering commitment to excellence and her willingness to organize charity events and fundraisers, using the hotel's spaces as centers for community and charitable events, reinforcing her commitment to social welfare. After a few days under the warm roof of Hotel Baker, Stephanie began to feel revitalized. Regular meals and a safe place to sleep had restored not only her body, but also a bit of her dignity. She watched the hotel staff diligently working, and an idea began to form in her mind. Determined not to be just a beneficiary of Cynthia's generosity, Stephanie decided it was time to make an offer. On a quiet morning after breakfast, Stephanie sought out Cynthia, who was at the reception organizing some papers. "Miss Baker," she began hesitantly, "I would like to speak with you if you have a moment." Cynthia looked at her, her face showing a mix of concern and interest. "Of course, Stephanie. What can I do for you?" Cynthia responded, guiding her to a more private corner of the reception. "I've been thinking," Stephanie began, nervously intertwining her hands. "I'm very grateful for everything you've done for me. I don't want to continue being a burden. I would like to work for the hotel if there's anything I can do. Anything. I just want to be able to give back in some way." Cynthia considered the offer for a moment. She knew the risks of employing someone without fully knowing their background, but something in Stephanie's determination made her want to give that chance. "Do you have any experience with hotel work?" she asked cautiously. "Not much, but I'm a quick learner and I'm willing to do anything to help," Stephanie replied, her eyes pleading for a chance. "All right," said Cynthia after a reflective pause. "Let's start with something simple. You can help our housekeeping team. They will teach you. But Stephanie, this is more than a job. You need to be responsible and committed. Can you do that?" Stephanie nodded vigorously, a smile of relief and gratitude lighting up her face. "Yes, Miss Baker. I promise you won't regret it." In the following days, Stephanie was introduced to the cleaning team, where she began to learn the details of the job. The other housekeepers, initially distrustful, soon began to appreciate her enthusiasm and dedication. Stephanie, for her part, worked hard, learning to make beds, change sheets and towels, and all the other necessary tasks. She was determined to show Cynthia and everyone at Hotel Baker that their decision to employ her had been the right one. Stephanie quickly adapted to the work rhythm at Hotel Baker. Her willingness to learn and meticulous attention to detail did not go unnoticed. She began to notice small things that could improve the hotel's efficiency and comfort. Cynthia observed these initiatives with growing admiration. One day, while reviewing cleaning routines with Stephanie, Cynthia commented, "You really have an eye for detail, Stephanie. It's impressive to see how you have adapted and improved our processes here." Stephanie smiled, grateful for the recognition. "I just want the hotel to be the best it can be, Miss Baker. If there's anything I can do to help, I'm more than willing." Cynthia began delegating more responsibilities to Stephanie, trusting her to supervise the cleaning routine when she had to attend engagements outside the hotel. Stephanie often found herself checking supplies, organizing the work schedule for the other housekeepers, and even training new employees. She became a reference point for the team, someone they could rely on to solve problems quickly and efficiently. One afternoon, Cynthia called Stephanie to her office. "Stephanie, I have been observing your work over the past few months and I'm very impressed. Your dedication and management skills are exactly what we need here. How would you feel about taking on the role of housekeeping supervisor?" Stephanie could hardly believe what she was hearing. "I would be honored, Miss Baker. Thank you so much for the trust." "Great," Cynthia replied with a smile. "And there's one more thing. I will need you to start attending the hotel's planning meetings. Your insight can help in many of our operational decisions." Over time, the relationship between Cynthia and Stephanie strengthened, turning into a respectful and reliable partnership. Cynthia trusted Stephanie to manage significant aspects of the hotel, something she rarely did before. Stephanie, in turn, took these responsibilities as a sign of her new beginning, determined to leave her past behind and build a new life at Hotel Baker. As Stephanie delved into her new role as supervisor, her true objective began to reveal itself. She harbored a secret, and her actions were planned to have a significant impact without arousing suspicion about her conduct. Stephanie began manipulating the hotel's reservation system. With access to the administrative software, she skillfully created false reservations that coincided with legitimate ones. When guests arrived and found their rooms already occupied, chaos ensued at the reception. The frustration of the clients was evident, and the hotel's reputation began to suffer. Stephanie watched from afar, pretending to be as confused and disturbed as everyone else, while discreetly documenting the issues to use them to her advantage later. Another tactic Stephanie employed was interfering with the hotel's supply logistics. She deliberately delayed orders for essential items such as toilet paper, cleaning products, and toiletries. This not only hindered the staff's ability to maintain cleanliness and service standards, but also generated negative reviews from guests who found their rooms poorly equipped. Stephanie used her control over suppliers and inventory to ensure these problems seemed to result from administrative or communication failures rather than sabotage. Gregory Mendoza was one of the longest-serving and most respected employees at Hotel Baker. As the maintenance chief, he knew every corner of the hotel and was always attentive to the establishment's and staff's needs. His experience made him an astute observer, and his friendly disposition made him a popular figure among his colleagues. He began to notice situations that did not align with the hotel's usual operation, especially since Stephanie had taken on a significant administrative role. Curious and somewhat worried, he decided to seek clarification directly from Stephanie. He found her in the hallway, ready to leave a meeting. "Good afternoon, Stephanie," Gregory began with a polite smile. "I've noticed some strange things in the records. It seems several maintenance issues haven't been reported to my team. Do you know anything about this?" Stephanie appeared momentarily unsettled but quickly regained her composure. "Oh, Gregory," she said with a forced smile, "it's been so hectic lately. I must have forgotten to pass on the information. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again." Gregory nodded, but his intuition told him there was more to the story. "I understand we're all busy, but it's crucial we maintain clear communication. Unresolved issues can escalate quickly and affect our guests' experience." Of course, you're absolutely right," Stephanie replied a bit hurriedly. "I promise I'll improve the communication. Thank you for letting me know." Despite Stephanie's assurances, Gregory continued to find inconsistencies and unreported faults. Additionally, he noticed that Stephanie was often near the rooms with issues, a coincidence that began to seem suspicious. He decided to keep his own record of incidents, meticulously documenting everything to present to Cynthia if the situation didn't improve. One morning, after another incident Stephanie claimed was a system error, Gregory could no longer contain himself. He approached her again, this time with a more serious tone. "Stephanie, we've been having too many problems since you started overseeing more areas. I'm not saying it's your fault, but we need to understand what's happening." Stephanie, feeling the pressure, maintained her calm exterior. "Gregory, I assure you I'm doing my best. Some errors are inevitable, especially with the increased guest flow. I'll review everything again." Gregory watched her walk away, still unconvinced. He knew something was amiss and decided it was time to discuss his observations with Cynthia. After all, the safety and well-being of Hotel Baker and its guests were at stake. Gregory Mendoza decided it was time to bring his concerns directly to Cynthia Baker, the hotel owner. With a folder full of notes and records in hand, he gently knocked on Cynthia's office door on a Tuesday morning. "Cynthia, do you have a moment? We need to talk about some operational issues at the hotel," he said, trying to keep his voice neutral. Cynthia looked up, her face showing signs of fatigue from the long hours of work, but she smiled upon seeing Gregory. "Of course, Gregory. Come in and sit down. What's going on?" Gregory closed the door behind him and sat down, placing the folder in front of Cynthia. "I've noticed a series of problems at the hotel that seem to be increasing. Duplicate reservations, unreported maintenance failures, and issues in the rooms that are directly affecting our guests' experience," Gregory began, handing the documents to her. Cynthia flipped through the papers, her expression becoming increasingly serious. "Gregory, I understand your concerns, but we're in a phase of many changes and adjustments. Stephanie has been a great help, and I truly think she is doing a good job." "I respect your opinion greatly, Cynthia, but I think we need to consider the possibility that not all problems are simple coincidences. Stephanie is often involved in the incidents, and that worries me," Gregory explained, looking directly at Cynthia, trying to convey his sincerity and concern. Cynthia set the papers aside and sighed. "Gregory, I've known Stephanie for a short time, but she has proven to be a trustworthy person. She is my right hand now. Maybe you're seeing problems where there aren't any. Stephanie has managed many things here that have freed me to focus on the hotel's development." Gregory felt a pang of frustration but maintained his calm. "I understand that you trust her, Cynthia, and I'm not here to oppose that without reason, but I ask that you stay vigilant and perhaps conduct a more in-depth review of the operations under her supervision. It might be important to avoid bigger problems in the future." Cynthia looked at Gregory, seeing the genuine concern in his eyes. "All right, Gregory, I'll keep your points in mind and observe more closely. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. Let's see how things develop." Gregory thanked her, rising to leave. As he exited Cynthia's office, Gregory felt a weight on his shoulders, a mix of sadness and disappointment. He walked slowly back to his office on the ground floor, passing through the busy corridors of the hotel with a forced smile for colleagues and guests, but inside, his mind was tumultuous. He had hoped for more understanding, or at least a bit more concern from Cynthia. After all, he had dedicated years to the hotel, and his commitment to its success and integrity was unquestionable. Arriving at his office, Gregory sat before his cluttered desk, full of maintenance projects and planned upgrades, each paper a testament to his care and attention to detail. He looked at all of it and thought about how his role was often invisible until something went wrong. Does she really think I would invent problems? That I would gain anything from this? Gregory murmured to himself, feeling a rare bitterness in his voice. Gregory tried to return to work, focusing on the day's tasks, but his hands trembled slightly as he held the tools and reports. He couldn't shake the feeling that by not being taken seriously, all his efforts were in vain. The mutual respect and trust he valued so much seemed to have vanished in just one conversation. After his meeting with Gregory, Cynthia decided to have a more direct conversation with Stephanie about the situation at the hotel. Finding her in the office she used to manage her daily responsibilities, Cynthia knocked gently on the door before entering. "Stephanie, do you have a minute? I wanted to know if everything is okay with you, or if there is something I should know about." Stephanie, a bit surprised by the unexpected visit but maintaining her professional demeanor, responded with a slight nod. "Everything is fine, Cynthia. Thank you for asking. I'm just trying to ensure everything runs as planned." Cynthia, still standing near the door, continued with her line of questioning, trying to probe a little deeper. "Gregory mentioned some concerns about the operations and your name came up. He is very dedicated to the hotel and I know he wouldn't raise concerns without a good reason. Are you having any issues with him?" Stephanie hesitated for a moment, her gaze briefly diverting before fixing back on Cynthia. She took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "Not directly, Cynthia. Gregory is very meticulous with his work, which I deeply respect. Perhaps there's a bit of tension due to the recent changes and the fast pace we're trying to maintain." Cynthia noticed Stephanie's hesitation and felt there might be more beneath the surface than what was being said. "I understand. It's important to me that everyone here feels valued and heard. If there is something you think could be improved in communication or in how we handle operations, please don't hesitate to tell me." Stephanie nodded, thanking Cynthia for her consideration. "I appreciate your concern, Cynthia. I'll do my best to ensure any challenges are addressed openly and collaboratively." Stephanie expressed her gratitude to Cynthia sincerely and emotionally. "Cynthia, before you go, I really need to say how grateful I am for everything you've done for me. Taking me off the street and giving me an opportunity here at the hotel changed my life. I value that and your trust in me so much." Cynthia smiled, comforted by Stephanie's words, feeling that despite the tensions and challenges, there was genuine appreciation and mutual respect. "I always believed everyone deserves a second chance, Stephanie. Seeing you work hard and contribute to the hotel's success makes me feel I made the right choice." Stephanie continued, "I want you to know that any issues we might have in terms of operations are just part of adjusting to the new role and responsibilities. I'm committed to making this work and maintaining the standard of excellence that Hotel Baker represents." Cynthia nodded, encouraged by Stephanie's determination. "I'm glad to hear that, and please remember, open communication is essential. If there's anything that needs adjustments or if you have ideas on how we can improve, I'm here to listen." Stephanie thanked her again and reaffirmed her commitment. "I will certainly do that, Cynthia. Thank you for this conversation and for your continued trust." With these words, Cynthia left Stephanie's office feeling more confident about the direction things were heading, committed to maintaining an environment where trust and respect were the foundation of the hotel's management. After the conversation with Cynthia, Stephanie was left alone in her office, immersed in her thoughts. The expression of gratitude on her face slowly gave way to a more serious and contemplative look. Although she had expressed her gratitude and commitment to Cynthia, inside a whirlwind of more complex emotions was stirring. Sitting in silence, she pondered the paths that had led her there, and a sense of vengeance began to crystallize in her mind. Although externally she was collaborating and presenting herself as an exemplary employee, internally Stephanie harbored a plan that she believed was the true way to seek justice. "I will be patient," she murmured to herself, looking fixedly at the window overlooking the busy street below. "Justice will be done in the end." She spoke with a conviction that contrasted with the gratitude expressed moments before. In her mind, Stephanie justified her future actions as necessary to balance the accounts of the past, a debt she felt had not yet been settled. As she organized her papers and planned the next day's activities, Stephanie maintained a distant look. Her plans, carefully hidden behind her professional facade, were fueled by a personal history of pain and betrayal that no one at the hotel could imagine. No one really knows what is coming, she thought, closing her notebook with an air of determination. While she continued to perform her duties efficiently, every decision she made, every word she spoke, was tinged with the shadow of her hidden agenda. Stephanie was playing a long game, and while Cynthia and the others celebrated her contributions and believed in her loyalty, she was preparing for the final phase of her plan. Meanwhile, during lunch, Gregory sat alone in the hotel canteen, his tray of food almost untouched in front of him. He replayed the conversation with Cynthia, wondering if he could have presented his concerns differently to convince her. Maybe I should have brought more evidence, more concrete examples, he thought, criticizing himself for not having prepared his case better. That night, Gregory went to bed early, but sleep was slow to come. He thought about Stephanie, Cynthia, and the future of the hotel. The uncertainty about how to proceed left him restless. What if I'm right and something really bad happens? What if I'm wrong and I'm just causing confusion for nothing? These questions swirled in his mind, robbing him of peace. Gregory knew that in the coming days he would need to keep an even closer watch and perhaps find a new way to approach Cynthia, one that would make her see what he was seeing before it was too late for Hotel Baker. In the days following his conversation with Cynthia, Gregory Mendoza became even more observant. His distrust of Stephanie Morris grew as he noticed peculiar patterns in her behavior, especially regarding how she managed her personal space within the hotel. Stephanie had her own room at the hotel, a privilege given by Cynthia as part of her rise and trust. Gregory began to notice that, unlike other staff rooms that were sometimes accessed by cleaning or maintenance services, Stephanie's room remained an impenetrable mystery. One day, as Gregory walked down the corridor where the staff rooms were located, he noticed that Stephanie's door was slightly ajar. However, before he could approach, Stephanie appeared abruptly, closing the door with a significant click. Her look upon seeing Gregory was one of alertness, almost as if she were guarding something of incalculable value inside. "Good afternoon, Stephanie," Gregory greeted, trying to sound casual. "Do you need anything for the room? Any maintenance, perhaps?" Stephanie shook her head, her expression hardening a bit. "No, everything is in order. Thank you, Gregory." And with those words, she practically slipped into the room, locking the door behind her. These observations only fueled Gregory's suspicions. He began to ponder the possibility that Stephanie was hiding something more serious. Gregory knew that if he wanted to uncover what Stephanie was hiding, he would need a careful and discreet approach. He planned a routine inspection for all staff rooms, something normal at the hotel but rarely enforced rigorously. For this, he prepared a formal notification sent to everyone except Stephanie. On the scheduled day for the inspection, Gregory acted naturally. He started with the rooms furthest from Stephanie's, accompanied by a maintenance assistant, checking everything meticulously and leaving Stephanie's room for last. When the time came, his heart beat a little faster. He knocked on her door. There was no answer. Stephanie had left to attend to some tasks on the other side of the hotel, as per the schedule Gregory had discreetly checked earlier. He inserted the master key into the lock and turned it gently. The door opened without a sound. Inside, Gregory quickly scanned the room, noting the meticulously organized desk and the overall neatness. However, his attention was drawn to a hidden compartment in the closet. Carefully, he opened it and found documents that confirmed his worst fears. The contents detailed plans and actions aimed at undermining the hotel's operations, all pointing to Stephanie's involvement. He exited the room, locking the door behind him, his mind racing with the implications of what he had just found. He needed to carefully think about his next steps, as the situation had just become much more serious. Without revealing the nature of the discovery, he knew he would have to confront Stephanie, but only after carefully planning how to approach this explosive situation. After his discovery in Stephanie's room, Gregory felt compelled to act. He sought out Cynthia, finding her in her office. "Cynthia, we need to talk." "It's about Stephanie," Gregory began, his voice laden with urgency. Cynthia looked up, her expression immediately clouding with concern. "What happened now, Gregory?" "I made a discovery in her room today during the routine inspection." "There's something you need to see," Gregory insisted. Cynthia's hesitation was evident. She trusted Stephanie and didn't want to believe something was wrong. Gregory, we've already discussed this. Are you sure this is necessary? Yes, Cynthia, it's extremely important. Please, I only ask that you see with your own eyes, Gregory implored, sensing her reluctance. After a moment of silence, Cynthia nodded, a sign of her trust in Gregory's judgment despite her reservations. When they reached the door, Gregory offered the key to Cynthia, who took it with trembling hands. With a soft click, the door opened, revealing the interior of Stephanie's room. Cynthia stepped in hesitantly, and what she saw clearly disturbed her. Upon entering Stephanie's room, Cynthia was confronted with a sight that chilled her to the bone. The walls, usually reserved for simple decorations or the absence thereof, were covered from top to bottom with photographs. But these were not ordinary photographs. They were images of Stephanie kissing Cynthia's husband, Mr. Dennis. Each frame showed them in different locations and situations, some clearly during trips, others at social events, and even in intimate moments. Dennis Baker was the co-owner of Hotel Baker and had been married to Cynthia for 20 years. The couple seemed to be the perfect portrait of a successful personal and professional partnership. Cynthia felt as if the ground beneath her feet had opened up. She moved from photo to photo, each revealing more than she had ever imagined about the man she shared her life with. The initial shock gave way to a mix of anger and betrayal as she touched one of the frames, tracing the outline of Dennis's face with a trembling finger. Gregory watched from the background, his expression a mix of empathy and concern. He had suspected something sinister, but the reality was more disturbing than he could have imagined. "Cynthia," he began, hesitant to break her trance, "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." Cynthia turned to him, tears forming in her eyes, but her gaze was as much one of fury as it was of sadness. "How many years has this been going on, Gregory? How many years did he lie to me?" Her voice broke with each word, laden with pain and incredulity. "I don't know, Cynthia, but now everything makes sense. The sabotages, the oddities in the hotel, everything was part of a bigger plan, perhaps revenge against you, against us." Gregory spoke softly, trying to offer some comfort despite the situation. Cynthia walked slowly back to the door, stopping to look once more at the images that revealed the double betrayal she had suffered. "I need time to think about all of this. I need to understand what I'm going to do." Her voice was now firmer, resolute, despite the clear emotional turmoil. Cynthia left the room, leaving Gregory behind, contemplating the walls covered with evidence of a betrayal that had deeply rooted itself within what he had always considered an extended family at Hotel Baker. He knew the coming days would be decisive for the future of all of them, and that Cynthia's actions would define the fate of the hotel and everyone connected to it. Cynthia walked heavily through the hotel corridor, feeling each step like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. When she reached the private office where she could have a moment of privacy, she closed the door behind her with a dull click. Sitting behind her desk, she covered her face with her hands for a moment, breathing deeply to gather strength before lifting her head to face the reality of her situation. "How did this happen right under my nose?" Cynthia murmured to herself, her voice trembling with emotion. "How could I have been so blind?" She stood up abruptly, pacing back and forth as her mind reeled from Dennis and Stephanie's betrayal. She stopped, staring at the window that overlooked the hotel's garden, her words pouring out in a rush. "I trusted him. I loved that man more than anything, and he betrayed me like this." The anger and disappointment were palpable in her voice. Turning, she slammed her hand on the desk, frustration evident in every gesture. "And Stephanie, the woman I saved from misery, whom I took in and cared for, how could she do this to me?" Cynthia spoke almost to herself, trying to grasp the magnitude of the betrayal. "I offered her a new life, a fresh start, and this is how she repays me? By deceiving me, working against me?" Tears began to form in Cynthia's eyes, but she quickly wiped them away, strengthening her resolve. "I never imagined this was happening. Never thought the people I loved and trusted the most could hurt me so much. This will not go unpunished. I will make sure both of them pay for everything they've done. No one betrays me and gets away with it, especially not in my own hotel." With this fierce determination, Cynthia began planning her next steps, ready to face the legal and emotional battle ahead. It wouldn't be easy, but she was resolved to seek justice and protect the legacy she had fought so hard to build. Cynthia decided to confront Dennis and Stephanie. Dennis was returning from a business trip, and Cynthia mentioned the changes her new employee was making, claiming she was doing wonders for the hotel. When he arrived at the hotel, Cynthia greeted him with a warm smile and a tight hug. "You need to see the improvements we've made," she said enthusiastically, "and there's someone I'm especially eager for you to meet. She has completely transformed the staff and brought some amazing ideas." Dennis allowed himself to be guided by her. "I'm curious to meet this wonder employee who has impressed you so much," he responded, a slight tone of teasing in his voice. Cynthia laughed, but there was a genuine gleam of pride in her eyes. They walked down the corridor leading to the hotel's conference room, where Cynthia began detailing the implemented changes, from optimizing check-in processes to new human resource management policies. She has a special knack for seeing what needs improvement and isn't afraid to suggest radical changes, Cynthia explained as they approached the office where the new employee usually organized her day. The atmosphere in the Hotel Baker conference room was tense as Cynthia, Dennis, and Stephanie gathered. Cynthia had arranged the meeting with a clear purpose, and while Dennis and Stephanie tried to maintain a facade of professional cordiality, the anxiety was palpable. Dennis, visibly shocked, stammered, "Stephanie, it's very nice to finally meet you in person. Cynthia has spoken a lot about your contributions," he said, striving to maintain a neutral tone. Stephanie nodded, her expression controlled, but her eyes betrayed evident caution. Stephanie, keeping her voice calm, responded, "It's a pleasure to meet you too, Dennis. I hope I can continue contributing positively to the hotel's success." She extended her hand for a formal handshake, though her heart was pounding, conscious of the charade they were enacting. Dennis took her hand, the brief contact charged with unspoken tension. "Yes, of course. Cynthia mentioned you've been extremely helpful. I'm looking forward to seeing all your work in action," he replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes, which quickly darted aside, avoiding Stephanie's direct gaze. Cynthia observed the interaction silently for a moment before intervening. "We don't need to pretend you don't know each other," she said calmly, her firm voice cutting through the tension in the air. "I know everything." With those words, she placed a thick envelope on the table. Slowly, she spread out several photographs of Dennis and Stephanie together. The revelation dropped like a bomb in the room, the atmosphere heavy with tension as Cynthia confronted them with a cold calm. "When I first saw Stephanie, she was sleeping on a bench in front of the hotel, appearing to be just a poor beggar seeking shelter. I brought her in, offered food, a place to sleep, and eventually a job. I treated her not just as an employee, but as someone who deserved a second chance in life." She paused, her gaze fixed on Stephanie, who seemed to shrink under the weight of the accusations. "And then I discovered this," Cynthia continued, gesturing to the photographs spread out on the table. "Photos of you two together, not just as friends or colleagues, but as lovers. That whole beggar story was just a farce, a way to infiltrate my life, my business." Dennis swallowed hard, his facade of ignorance crumbling before the photographic evidence. He looked at Stephanie, seeking some sort of support or direction, but she averted her gaze, her posture rigid. "Cynthia, this isn't what it looks like," he began, his voice failing. "We never meant to." "Don't insult my intelligence, Dennis," Cynthia interrupted, raising her hand to silence him. "The photos speak for themselves." The determination in her voice was unwavering, and it was clear she wouldn't accept excuses or half-truths. Stephanie spoke. "I was seeking justice, Cynthia," she began, her voice firm despite the emotion. "I pretended to be a beggar to infiltrate here because I needed to see Dennis lose everything." In the heat of the moment, with emotions running high, Stephanie continued, her gaze fixed on Dennis, who tried unsuccessfully to maintain an impassive expression. "Dennis and I were together for 5 years. He said he loved me, that he would leave Cynthia to be with me. I believed every promise, every sweet word." Dennis, now unable to hide his guilt, interrupted, trying to somehow mitigate the situation. "Stephanie, it wasn't that simple. Things changed. Feelings changed." His voice faltered as he tried to explain the inexplicable. "Yes, changed, because you found someone younger." Stephanie cut him off, the bitterness evident in her voice. "After everything we planned, after all the love you said you had, you just discarded me when a younger option appeared." Dennis tried to speak, but the words seemed to fail him before they were formed. Cynthia, watching the exchange with growing horror, realized the depth of the betrayal, not just against her, but also the painful pattern of Dennis's behavior. "I couldn't let this go, Cynthia." Stephanie turned to the hotel owner, tears threatening to fall. "I needed him to feel what it's like to lose everything, because that's exactly what he did to me. He promised a future he never intended to fulfill. Cynthia, now fully understanding the complexity of the web of lies woven around her, felt a mix of anger and compassion. Anger for what Dennis had done, compassion for Stephanie, another victim of Dennis's false promises. Dennis immediately shook his head, his expression becoming defensive. "That's a complete lie, Stephanie. We broke up because our relationship wasn't working, not because I found someone younger. You're distorting reality to play the victim." Stephanie, undeterred by Dennis's denial, pulled a small envelope from her bag. With precise movements, she removed several photographs and laid them on the table. "Then how do you explain this?" The photos showed Dennis with another woman in various seemingly romantic encounters. Dennis looked at the photos spread out on the table, his face pale. He tried to speak, searching for words that seemed to elude him. This isn't what you're thinking, Cynthia," he stammered, his desperate gaze turning to his wife, seeking some spark of belief or forgiveness. Cynthia picked up the photos, looking at them one by one, each image a blow to her heart and her trust. She felt her life crumbling around her, each secret revealed like a brick pulled from an already fragile structure. "Dennis, how can you continue to lie even now?" Her voice was laden with sadness and disillusionment. Cynthia, with trembling hands still holding the last photographs presented by Stephanie, raised her eyes, facing both Dennis and Stephanie with a mixture of disgust and indignation. "You two are horrible people," she began, her voice breaking with emotion. "Dennis, you, an unfaithful husband who not only betrayed my trust but dishonored our marriage in so many unimaginable ways." She then turned to Stephanie, who tried to maintain a defensive posture, though her face showed clear signs of remorse. "And you, Stephanie, abused my kindness, pretending to be a poor beggar to infiltrate our lives and execute your revenge. I opened the doors of my hotel and my heart to help you, and you used that against me, against us." Dennis tried to interrupt again, gesticulating with his hands in a gesture of supplication. His face was red both with shame and frustration as he struggled to find the right words that might alleviate the situation. "Cynthia, I know I made mistakes, but—" Cynthia raised her hand, interrupting him with a firmness that silenced the room instantly. "No, Dennis, there is no justification for what you did. Every choice you made led to this moment of complete disappointment." Dennis swallowed hard, Cynthia's words hitting him like a physical blow. "I was confused, lost," he tried to explain, his voice trembling, revealing his emotionally shattered state. "I never wanted to hurt you this way." "Confused? Lost?" Cynthia repeated, her voice filled with incredulity and pain. "Those are excuses, Dennis, not reasons. You weren't confused when you decided to lie, when you chose to hide the truth. You were very aware of your actions." Dennis bowed his head, unable to sustain Cynthia's penetrating gaze. "I thought I could control the situation," he murmured almost inaudibly. "I thought I could keep everything balanced, but I was wrong. I ruined everything." "You didn't just think wrong, you acted wrong," Cynthia responded, her voice now calmer but still laden with authority and resolution. "And now we're all paying the price for your decisions, not just me but everyone involved." The conversation revealed the deep cracks not just in their marriage but also in the foundations of trust and respect that were supposed to sustain it. "Cynthia, I truly regret it. What started as revenge. I never wanted to cause so much harm. I got lost in my own resentment." Her voice was a whisper of regret, but Cynthia hardly moved, her expression unwavering. Stephanie paused, her breath irregular as she struggled to maintain composure. "Initially, my goal was just to seek justice for myself, but I now realize how far I went, how blindly I let resentment guide my actions. I turned my pain into a weapon, something I sincerely regret." Cynthia observed Stephanie, assessing the sincerity of her words. The pain and betrayal were still fresh, and every word from Stephanie resonated in an already disillusioned space. "You allowed your desire for revenge to overshadow any consideration for others around you," Cynthia responded, her voice firm but tinged with sadness. "You didn't just plot against Dennis, but against the hotel, the staff, against me." Stephanie lowered her head, accepting the reprimand. "Yes, and for that I ask for your forgiveness, though I know you may no longer have any trust in me. I was wrong, and that's something I'll have to live with." She slowly raised her eyes, looking at Cynthia with a mixture of hope and fear. Cynthia, for her part, remained unwavering, her posture reflecting the authority of someone who had faced a storm and still stood firm. Forgiveness is a process, Stephanie, not just a moment of acceptance. What you did created ripples that affected many lives. The reparation won't be quick or easy. I am ready to face the consequences and do whatever is necessary to repair the damage I caused, Stephanie affirmed, a new resolution strengthening her voice. I want to try, if you allow, to restore the trust that was broken and help rebuild what was lost. Cynthia, however, remained resolute. Don't be ridiculous. You are my husband's lover. How do you think I can trust you? She asked sharply. With tears in her eyes, she declared, I want both of you to leave my hotel immediately. Dennis and Stephanie left with their turbulence and remorse. After the revelation of the betrayals, Cynthia found herself lost in a storm of emotions and difficult decisions. The pain of the discovery made her reflect on the best course of action to protect her future and that of her hotel. She knew she couldn't let Dennis and Stephanie's actions go unanswered. Determined to seek justice and ensure they were held accountable for their actions, Cynthia sought the help of a lawyer specializing in business and civil law. In a meeting in her office, Cynthia met with the lawyer, Mr. Ramirez. During the meeting, Cynthia explained the complexities of her situation, describing her husband's infidelity and the deliberate betrayal of one of her employees. She handed the lawyer a folder containing all the necessary evidence, such as photographs and records of sabotage, demonstrating the severity of the acts committed against her and her business. Mr. Ramirez, meticulously examining the documents, recognized the strength of Cynthia's case. He discussed with her the various legal options available. The legal strategy included not only filing for divorce, but also a civil action for moral damages, arguing that Dennis's conduct had a significant emotional impact on Cynthia. This compensation would include not only the acknowledgement of the emotional suffering endured, but also cover the costs of any necessary psychological intervention that Cynthia might need due to the trauma experienced. With the same determination applied to Dennis's case, Cynthia Baker and her lawyer, Mr. Ramirez, formulated a meticulous plan to address the legal issues related to Stephanie Morris's betrayal and sabotage. The basis of the action against Stephanie was the breach of trust and the deliberate harm to the hotel. Altered reservation documents, customer feedback noting problems during their stay, and internal communication records were compiled to show a pattern of malicious conduct. Mr. Ramirez planned to file a lawsuit for material and moral damages, arguing that Stephanie's actions not only affected the hotel's reputation, but also caused direct financial losses. As the legal proceedings against Dennis and Stephanie advanced, Cynthia Baker gradually felt relieved of the layers of deceit and betrayal that had weighed on her. The struggle to restore order and integrity to Hotel Baker was arduous, but revealed a resilience and determination in Cynthia that she hadn't known she possessed. As the cases unfolded, both Dennis and Stephanie faced the consequences of their actions. Dennis was penalized in the divorce, with Cynthia gaining a significant portion of their joint assets, allowing her to maintain control of the hotel. Stephanie, on the other hand, was found guilty of fraud and harm to the business, resulting in severe financial penalties and her ineligibility for future positions of trust in the hospitality industry. With the final verdicts, Cynthia took measures to reinforce security and reliability at Hotel Baker. The hotel not only regained its reputation but began to thrive, attracting more guests than ever, thanks to the positive publicity generated by Cynthia's demonstrated integrity. Under her leadership, the hotel became a model of ethical management and was frequently cited in case studies on overcoming adversity in the hospitality industry. Cynthia, now stronger and wiser from the adversities she faced, looked to the future with a new vision to expand her brand and open new hotels in other cities. The story of Cynthia Baker and Hotel Baker serves as a powerful testament that, even in the face of betrayal and disillusionment, it is possible to emerge stronger and more determined. She not only recovered what was lost, but turned her experiences into a driving force for growth and innovation, inspiring many others to follow her example of resilience and integrity. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to the channel. This helps me continue sharing amazing stories every day. Don't miss the next surprising story that now appears on your screen. Thank you very much for your support. See you soon.
A young millionaire running late for an important meeting saw a beggar with a baby in the rain. Without thinking, he gave her the keys to his house. When he returned, he entered without knocking and was horrified by what he saw. On a bustling day in Boston, Adam walked through the hall of one of the country's most prestigious architecture events. Around him, the splendor of the setting vividly contrasted with the true purpose of the evening. Though wrapped in glamour and sophistication, the event had a charitable aim: to raise funds for affordable housing projects. Renowned architects, including Adam, had donated their designs to help turn these plans into tangible realities, providing the elite with an opportunity to significantly contribute to society, even if for some it was just another chance to showcase their status. Adam, known for his exceptional talent, stood out as much as the works he created. Despite his evident success, there were whispers about recent changes in his behavior, marked by the tragic loss of his young wife in an accident and the responsibility of caring for his ill father. Some considered him distant and reserved, but those who understood the hardships of life saw his demeanor as a way to cope with adversity. During the event, Adam met Lillian, a legendary figure in the world of architecture, admired for her extensive experience and numerous achievements. "Adam, it's always impressive to see you here," she said, watching him intently. "I heard that besides your intense work, you've been dedicating time to caring for your father. That's really commendable." He responded with a polite smile and a nod, though he felt out of place in the environment of facades and frivolities. Sensing his discomfort, Lillian remarked, "These events often feel superficial, but sometimes they surprise us. What really brought you here today, Adam? It doesn't seem to be just for the contacts." Adam smiled sadly. "I'm here more out of obligation than desire. My life has never revolved solely around architecture. It was shaped by far deeper experiences and the lessons I learned from my father." He paused, his thoughts drifting to challenging times. "My father, despite facing many difficulties, always found ways to help others. He was a simple man, but with a big heart. He raised me alone, and every sacrifice he made became a valuable lesson for me." Lillian listened intently, her face expressing deep respect. "It's rare to find someone who preserves those values, especially someone with the success you've achieved. Your father must be an incredible man." "He truly is," Adam replied, a glint of pride in his eyes. "He did a bit of everything to support us, from fixing things for neighbors to giving private lessons. He always said that a man's greatest wealth is not in what he owns, but in what he can offer to others." Lillian nodded, understanding the depth of Adam's words. "That explains a lot about who you are, Adam, and how you conduct your life and career. Many here could learn from that." Adam smiled, thanking Lillian. "I just try to live in a way that would make my father proud. He taught me that the true architecture of life is in building bridges between people, creating spaces of understanding and support." Lillian smiled with genuine admiration. She too had started life simply, studied hard, and reached one of the highest levels in her profession. But despite all this, there was a sadness in her eyes, as she had not started a family and kept that part of her life very private. After leaving the architecture event, Adam drove home, a place that had become more of a sanctuary than just a living space. Upon arrival, he found his father, now living with him due to his illness, watching a nighttime program. Despite the health challenges, Mr. Robert maintained a vibrant spirit and an active mind. "How was the event, son?" he asked with an interested look. "Did they raise a good amount?" "It went very well, despite the atmosphere of people who think they are gods because of their money. It was a success. I even talked to Lillian about the importance of our work to society," Adam replied, sitting next to his father. After the conversation, Adam stood up and headed to the kitchen. "I'll prepare something for us to eat. Do you want anything specific?" he called over his shoulder. "Anything is fine, son. Don't go to too much trouble on my account," his father replied with a grateful smile. Later, while helping his father settle in for the night, Adam mentioned his plans for the next day. "Dad, tomorrow morning I have to travel for that meeting about the new project. I'll leave everything organized here, and Mrs. Martinez promised to check on you." His father, settling comfortably in bed, looked at him tenderly. "You're a good son, Adam. Go and do what you need to do. I'm proud of you." Mr. Robert had faced numerous hardships in the past. After Adam's mother abandoned them, he took on the enormous responsibility of raising him alone. Despite financial adversities, he always prioritized Adam's education, firmly believing it was the pathway to a better future. All the money he earned was invested in his son's education, With determination and dedication, Adam seized every learning opportunity, transforming into the renowned architect he is today. Even after achieving success, he never forgot the struggles and sacrifices of his father, staying by his side and caring for him with the same love and gratitude he received in his childhood. The following morning, Adam woke up early, preparing for the significant day ahead. He dressed meticulously, choosing an elegant suit appropriate for the crucial meeting in a neighboring city. Before leaving, he called the man he was scheduled to meet. "Good morning, Mr. Connor. I'm leaving now and will be there shortly," said Adam, confirming his plans. As he headed to the car, a torrential rain began to fall. The driver, already familiar with Adam's route and habits, waited. "It looks like we'll be facing some tough weather on the road, Mr. Adam," the driver remarked upon seeing him approach. Traffic in the neighboring city was chaotic due to the intense rain. Adam's car moved slowly through the congested road. He watched the rain hitting the window, lost in thoughts about the meeting when a scene on the roadside caught his attention. A woman, clearly homeless, held a newborn baby, desperately trying to protect it from the relentless rain. It was an image of despair and vulnerability that deeply touched Adam's heart. Without hesitation, Adam told the driver, "Please stop the car. I need to help that woman." The driver, knowing Adam's compassion for people in need, cautioned, "But Mr. Adam, you'll get wet and ruin your suit, and we still have a meeting to get to." Adam, determined, replied, "I don't care about the suit or being late. That woman and her baby need help now." He opened the car door and stepped out, facing the pouring rain. Approaching the woman, he asked, "Can I help you? You and your baby can't stay out here in this rain. Do you have somewhere to go? A home?" The woman, still surprised and shielding her daughter from the rain, quickly responded, "No, we have nowhere to go." But she did not elaborate on her situation. Adam felt an urgency to act. Without hesitation, he ran back to the car under the pouring rain and asked the driver to open the glove compartment. From there, he took out a bunch of keys. Returning to the woman, he briefly introduced himself and asked, "What's your name?" "Stella," she replied, holding her daughter closer to protect her from the rain. "Stella, this is the key to my father's house. It's nearby. He's living with me for now, so the house is empty." "You can stay there with your daughter," said Adam, extending the bunch of keys to her. "I need to go now because I'm late for a meeting, but my driver will take you there." After handing the keys to Stella, Adam quickly returned to the car. Already soaked by the rain, he informed the driver, "I'll walk to the meeting. Please take Stella and the child to my father's house. It's just down the road. And stop at the market. Buy whatever they need, food, clothes, diapers, anything." The driver, accustomed to Adam's acts of kindness, promptly nodded, "Of course, Mr. Adam, I'll take care of everything." Adam's driver, after saying goodbye to him, returned to where Stella was sheltered from the rain with her daughter. Approaching her, he kindly said, "Come on, don't worry. I'll take you to a safe place. Mr. Adam wants to help you and your daughter." Stella, however, looked at the driver with a mix of fear and mistrust. "I don't know you. I've seen on TV what can happen. I can't just trust like that," she said, clutching her daughter to her chest. The driver, understanding her hesitation, tried to reassure her. "I understand your fear, but I assure you Mr. Adam is a good-hearted man. He just wants to help." To demonstrate his sincerity, he opened his wallet and showed some photos of his own family. "Look, I'm also a father. I've been working with Mr. Adam for years. He's a man who truly cares about others." Stella observed the photos and the sincere expression of the driver. Still cautious, but feeling that this might be a real opportunity for shelter and safety, she finally agreed to go with him. Carefully, she got into the car, protecting her daughter from the rain, while the driver took care of driving them to Adam's father's house. But first, they stopped at a market to buy food and diapers for the baby. In the late afternoon, after a long and productive meeting, Adam exited the building to find his driver waiting for him. As soon as he entered the car, Adam asked, "How did it go with Stella and the child? Did they arrive safely at my father's house?" The driver answered, "Yes, Mr. Adam, but I left her at the beginning of the street. I thought it would be easier to maneuver the car." Adam, a bit surprised by the driver's decision, gently reprimanded him. "You should have left her at the front door, especially with this rain and with a small child." He paused for a moment, reflecting. "But it's okay. It was a busy day for all of us. I'll stop by tomorrow to see how they are doing and make sure they have everything they need," Adam continued, as he looked out the car window, thoughtful. Concern for Stella and her daughter occupied his mind, but he felt he had made the right choice in helping them. Upon arriving home, Adam had barely opened the door when he was greeted by Mrs. Rose, who looked after his father in his absence. She seemed to have unexpected news to share. "Mr. Adam, your father, Mr. Robert, took a copy of the keys to his house and went there as soon as you left. He said he wanted to spend a few days there. He was feeling bored and a bit better," she informed him, somewhat hesitantly. Adam was surprised by the news. "He went alone, but he knows he shouldn't have," Adam began, concerned about his father's health and safety. Mrs. Rose interrupted. "Yes, he went alone. He said he waited for you to travel because he knew you wouldn't let him go like that. He seemed determined and said he felt well enough to stay alone for a few days." Hearing about his father's sudden decision to go to the other house, where Stella and her daughter were sheltered, Adam immediately thought of the possible complications. Without hesitation, he asked the driver to take him there urgently. As the car sped through the streets, worry grew in his chest. Arriving at the house, Adam saw the door open and an ambulance parked outside. His heart raced as he saw his father being carried out on a stretcher. Adam ran inside, overwhelmed with panic, trying to understand what was happening. He approached the paramedics and introduced himself. "I am his son. What happened?" The doctor, looking at Adam, calmly explained, "Your father had a stroke. Fortunately, your wife was here and acted quickly, calling the ambulance. She saved his life." Adam felt a whirlwind of emotions. Relief that his father was alive, gratitude that Stella had been there, and a profound scare about what could have happened. He followed the stretcher to the ambulance, determined to be by his father's side during this critical moment. Still shaken, he watched as the doctor took his father to the ambulance. As soon as the vehicle headed for the hospital, he turned back to the house, looking for Stella and her daughter. Adam approached Stella and her daughter. He tried to control his nervousness after the scare with his father, but concern was still evident on his face. "Stella, I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done. The doctor thought you were my wife," said Adam, trying to ease the tension of the moment with a slight smile. Stella, realizing the seriousness of the situation, responded in a soft tone. "There's nothing to thank me for, Mr. Adam. I did what anyone would do. I was in the right place at the right time." Adam noticed the purchases she had made, observing that they were only basic items. "I see you've only bought the essentials. You could have taken more, you know. You don't need to limit yourself," he commented, worried whether she had everything she needed. Stella looked at him, a mix of gratitude and hesitation in her eyes. "I didn't want to take advantage of your generosity. You've already done so much for us." There was a moment of silence, during which Adam felt a deep connection with Stella. "Stella, I would really like to know more about you and your daughter. How did you come to be in this situation? If you're willing to share, I would like to hear," said Adam, expressing his genuine desire to understand and help. Stella sighed, appearing to decide whether to open her heart. She looked at her daughter, then at Adam, and began to speak. "I never knew my mother," she began, "and I grew up with a father who was more like a stranger. He drank too much and barely noticed my presence." Adam listened attentively, sensing the strength in her words. "I wanted to study, you know. But my father, he never allowed it. I read in secret after he was asleep, dreaming of a better future." Stella paused, recalling those moments. "Time passed, and life only got worse. My father got deeper into drinking, and I tried to help but couldn't. He was a harsh man who mostly scared me until one day I met someone," she continued. "He seemed perfect, kind. We were together for a while until I got pregnant. At that moment I was very scared, but thought I would finally have a family." Stella sighed, the pain evident in her voice. "But he abandoned me as soon as he found out about the pregnancy. He disappeared and I never heard from him again. I managed to hide the pregnancy for a while, but when my father found out..." Stella hesitated. "He was furious. He didn't let me explain. I was thrown out of the house with nothing." "How did you survive?" asked Adam, his voice laden with concern. "I begged for money, lived on the streets, and when my daughter was born, it was the homeless who helped me. I was scared, wary of everything and everyone, but I had to be strong for my daughter." Adam looked at Stella, seeing not just the pain and fear in her expression, but also an incredible strength. "You are incredibly strong, Stella. Your story, it's one of immense struggle." Stella smiled sadly. "I had no choice. Life wasn't kind, but I couldn't give up. For my daughter, I would face everything all over again." I don't know how to thank you for all this, she continued, her voice choked with emotion. When I saw all your father's books, I felt like I was in heaven. I love to read, but I've never had the chance to access so many books. Adam smiled gently. You can read all you want, Stella. Consider them yours as well. As he prepared to leave, Adam turned to Stella, extending an envelope. Here's something to help with expenses, he said softly. Stella looked at the envelope, noticing the heft of the paper. She cautiously opened it, her eyes widening at the amount of money inside. Adam, this is too much. I can't accept all of this, she stammered, her voice trembling. Please accept it, Adam insisted with an encouraging smile. You need this more than I do. Buy clothes, food, everything you and your baby need. Tears welled up in Stella's eyes. I don't even know how to thank you. You're giving me more than help, you're giving me hope. There was a moment of silence during which Stella observed Adam, a thought emerging in her mind. May I ask, are you married, Adam? Adam sighed, a shadow passing over his face. I was, he began. My wife, she died in an accident just a month after our wedding. That was 3 years ago. Stella covered her mouth with her hand, surprised and saddened by the revelation. I'm so sorry, Adam. I had no idea. He shook his head slightly. It's okay. It was hard, but I've learned to live with it. The pain never completely goes away, but we learn to move on, don't we? Stella nodded, feeling an unexpected connection with Adam through their shared experiences of loss and struggle. Adam stood up, picking up his keys. Well, I need to go now, but please make yourself at home here. And if you need anything at all, give me a call. Thank you, Adam, said Stella sincerely, for everything. He nodded, a sad smile on his lips. Take care, Stella, and remember you're not alone. With those words, he left, leaving Stella sitting, enveloped in a mix of gratitude, hope, and a newfound feeling of not being so isolated in the world anymore. Adam returned to his home, his mind full of thoughts about his meeting with Stella and her story. The next day he visited his father in the hospital. His father was in stable condition but still required constant care. Sitting beside the hospital bed, Adam began to tell about Stella and her daughter, detailing the day he fell ill and how she had called the doctor and saved Mr. Robert, and also how difficult her life had been. Adam's father listened attentively, his face showing signs of emotion. You did a very good thing, son. Stella seems like an incredible and courageous woman, he said with a weak but proud voice. It's good to see that you've grown up to be a man with a kind heart. I thank God for not abandoning me when I asked for the strength to raise you alone. There was a moment of comfortable silence between them, each lost in their thoughts. Then Adam's father, looking thoughtful, spoke again. Don't you think it would be better to bring Stella and the baby to live closer to us? They could stay at our house. I would like to have more life around, and you wouldn't need to travel so much to see them. Adam considered the suggestion. The idea of bringing Stella and her daughter closer seemed welcoming, and the prospect of his father having more company at home was also appealing. That's a good idea, Dad. I'll talk to Stella about it. I think their presence would bring more joy to our home. Adam's father smiled, excited by the possibility. It would be wonderful to have a child around the house. It's always so quiet when you're working. With this new idea in mind, Adam said goodbye to his father, promising to seriously consider the proposal and discuss it with Stella. He left the hospital feeling hopeful, thinking about the possibilities the future might bring for them all. After a long day of work on a major project, Adam was exhausted but determined. He drove to the house where Stella was staying, thinking about the proposal he had in mind. Upon arrival, he found Stella tidying some things in the living room, with the baby playing quietly on the floor. Stella, I have something important to discuss with you, Adam began, sitting down near her. Stella looked at him, curious. What happened, Adam? He took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. My house, it's big, and since my father fell ill, it has been very quiet. He loves reading, and I thought since you also like it, you could keep each other company. Moreover, he could help you with your studies if you want. Stella appeared surprised by the proposal. You mean, live in your house, me and my daughter? Yes, Adam affirmed. It would be amazing to have you and your baby there. I think your presence could be good for my dad. He would feel less lonely and you would have a safe place to stay, plus access to all the books you could ever want. Stella was silent for a moment, clearly pondering the offer. That, That would be amazing, Adam. I don't know how to thank you. It would be a great help for me and my daughter, and I would love to be able to study more. Adam smiled, relieved and happy with her response. Then it's decided. Let's do this. I believe it will be good for all of us. With a smile of gratitude, Stella accepted the offer and quickly began gathering her and her daughter's belongings. Once they finished, they returned to Adam's house, her heart filled with hope for the chance to study and make something of herself. As they entered the house, Stella couldn't hide her surprise. "Wow, Adam, your house is incredible. You are truly a talented architect," she exclaimed, looking around in admiration. Adam smiled, appreciative. "Thank you, Stella. I hope you and your daughter feel comfortable here." In the days that followed, the relationship between Stella and Mr. Robert, Adam's father, grew increasingly close. He had a vast collection of books, and with great enthusiasm he began to show Stella those he considered most interesting. Mr. Robert picked up an old book and said, "This one was one of my favorites when I was younger. I think you'll like it." Stella took the book, flipping through its yellowed pages. "It looks fascinating. Thank you for sharing this with me, Mr. Robert." Noticing the special connection forming between them and Stella's dedication, Adam decided to let go of his father's caretaker. Stella had insisted on taking care of Mr. Robert when Adam was not home. She looked after him with a mix of respect and affection, and Mr. Robert greatly appreciated her and her daughter's company. Stella often emphasized how much she enjoyed her new life. "I really like taking care of your father, Adam. He has been so kind to me and my daughter. It's the least I can do." Adam thanked her with a nod. "You're already part of the family, Stella. My father and I are very grateful to have you and your daughter here." As Stella settled into Adam's house, he made sure to offer her not just a home but also financial independence. One day, while they were talking in the kitchen, Adam brought up the subject. "Stella, I've been thinking," Adam began. "I'd like to pay you a salary. You've been incredible taking care of my father and the house, and I think it's important that you have your own income." Stella, surprised, looked at him. "Adam, that's not necessary. You're already providing a home and everything my daughter and I need." "I know, but it's important to me that you feel free and independent," Adam insisted. "I want you to be able to buy what you need for yourself and your daughter without having to ask." Stella looked at Adam, her eyes reflecting a mix of gratitude and melancholy. "You have no idea how much your words mean to me," she began, her voice trembling with the emotional weight of years of repression. "For so long, my life was dictated by others, always someone telling me what I could or couldn't do, where I could go, how I should live. Being treated anyhow, unable to make my own decisions. This freedom you're offering is something I hardly dared dream of anymore." Adam listened attentively, his expression a mix of understanding and encouragement. He leaned forward, capturing Stella's gaze. "I see your strength, Stella, and I believe in you more than you do at this moment. You're capable of much more than you imagine, and it's time for you to start exploring that. It's not just about buying things, but about you taking control of your life. Independence starts with small steps, and each decision you make is another brick in the path of your new journey." Stella sighed, absorbing Adam's words. "I've always been afraid," she confessed, "afraid of making mistakes, afraid of making choices because I was conditioned to think I was not capable. Every decision I didn't make was a way to keep me trapped, dependent. But you're right, maybe this is how I start to feel truly free." Adam nodded, encouraging her to continue. "Exactly, Stella, and don't think you have to do everything alone. I'm here to support you, but the final decision will always be yours. Think of this as an opportunity to rediscover who you are, to explore what you truly like, what you want for your life and for your daughter." "I want that, I really do," said Stella. "I want my daughter to see me as an example of strength and independence, not dependency. I want her to grow up knowing she can make her own decisions without fear. Adam, thank you for believing in me." Adam smiled, pleased to see determination growing in Stella. "Then let's get started. How about we plan some initial goals together? Small things like opening your own bank account or simply choosing something you've always wanted to buy for yourself and your daughter. Let's make each choice a step towards your complete independence." From that moment, Stella began to receive a regular salary from Adam. For the first time in years, she felt what it was like to have financial autonomy. She could buy clothes for her daughter, pick out new books to read, and even save money for the future without feeling dependent or needing to ask for permission. Over time, the relationship between Adam and Stella became more intimate and affectionate. Adam loved spending time with Hannah, Stella's baby, and they often went out for walks together. During these moments, Adam shared his passion for architecture with Stella, and she was genuinely interested, soaking up every word. Stella also dedicated herself to reading the books Adam recommended, deepening the connection between them even further. The affection they shared began to evolve into something more profound. In her heart, Stella felt herself falling in love with Adam, but she kept her feelings to herself, unsure of how to proceed. One day, Adam found himself discussing his feelings with his father. Sitting on the porch watching the sunset, Adam confided, "Dad, I think I'm falling in love with Stella. It's the first time in years I've felt this way, but I don't know what to do." Adam's father, with an understanding smile, looked at him and said, "Son, life is too short for hesitations. If you feel this way about Stella, you should tell her. You deserve to be happy." Adam pondered his father's words. "Do you really think so? What if she doesn't feel the same?" "You'll never know unless you try. And from what I see, the way she looks at you says a lot," his father encouraged. Inspired by his father's advice, Adam decided he would talk to Stella. He wanted to express his feelings and find out if the affection he felt was reciprocated. With a mix of nervousness and hope, he planned how he would approach the subject with Stella, wishing more than anything that she shared his feelings. That night, after putting Hannah to bed, Stella sat in the living room reading when Adam approached her. He sat down beside her, his heart pounding. The comfortable silence was broken by his soft, yet hesitant voice. "Stella, can I talk to you about something important?" Adam started, looking into her eyes. Stella set her book aside and turned toward him, an attentive expression on her face. "Of course, Adam. What's going on?" Adam took a deep breath, gathering courage. "I've been feeling something more for you lately, more than just friendship. You've brought new light into my life and this home. I care about you and Hannah more than I imagined I would." Stella's heart raced, surprised and moved by his words. "Adam, I feel something for you too. You've been incredible to us," she responded, her voice quivering. Adam took her hand. "Stella, I want to be here for you. Not just as a friend, but as someone who truly cares. I would love to be a part of Hannah's life, to care for her as if she were my own daughter." Stella felt tears forming in her eyes, touched by Adam's sincerity. "That means so much to me. Hannah and we already see you as part of our family." From that night on, the relationship between Adam and Stella flourished. As Stella began attending social and professional events with Adam, reactions from people varied. There were malicious comments circulating, some referring to Stella disparagingly as the beggar Adam took in. At various places, people looked at them with disdain, whispering among themselves. However, Adam remained indifferent to these judgments, always by Stella's side, who felt increasingly confident and secure with him. At one of these events, an elegant cocktail party at an art gallery, Mrs. Lillian, a well-known figure in Adam's social circle, approached the couple. With a polite smile, she greeted them. "Adam, Stella, it's a pleasure to see you here. I've heard about your relationship and I want to congratulate you," she said, maintaining a cordial demeanor. Stella thanked her, a bit tense under Lillian's scrutinizing gaze. There was something about the way Lillian watched her that made Stella uncomfortable, but she maintained her composure. Lillian continued, still with her piercing gaze fixed on Stella. "It's always a pleasant surprise to see new faces at our events. Stella, you have a very unique air about you." "Thank you, Mrs. Lillian," replied Stella politely. Before I forget, I'd like to invite you both to a dinner at my house next week." "It would be a pleasure to have you," Lillian said, looking at both of them. Adam hesitated for a moment, feeling a certain moral obligation to accept the invitation, though not particularly excited about the idea. He exchanged a quick look with Stella, seeking her silent opinion before responding. "We would be pleased, Mrs. Lillian. We accept the invitation," said Adam, offering a polite smile. Lillian seemed satisfied with the response. "Great, I'm looking forward to having you. It will be a delightful evening. Until then," she said, before moving away, leaving Adam and Stella alone again. As soon as she left, Adam looked at Stella. "Sorry, I thought we should accept. I hope that's okay with you," he commented, a bit concerned. Stella nodded, supporting his decision. "It's okay, Adam. I think it will be an interesting experience," she replied, trying to sound optimistic. Together, they continued to enjoy the event, though the prospect of the dinner at Lillian's house lingered in their minds, mixing feelings of curiosity and caution. The day of the dinner at Mrs. Lillian's house arrived, and Adam and Stella prepared for the occasion. Upon arrival, they were impressed by the beauty and grandeur of the house. It was evident that Lillian was a renowned architect. Every detail of the decoration was carefully planned and executed with perfection. The aesthetics were impeccable, blending modern and classic art in a harmonious way. As they entered, Lillian welcomed them warmly and invited them to sit down. Stella, while admiring the interior, couldn't help but notice a certain emptiness in the atmosphere. Despite the beauty, the house seemed to lack warmth and coziness. Lillian lived alone in that huge mansion, and the space didn't convey the feeling of a happy home. "What a beautiful house, Mrs. Lillian," commented Stella, trying not to show her perception of the place's atmosphere. "Thank you, Stella. I've put a lot of effort into every detail," replied Lillian with a smile of pride. Lillian watched Stella attentively, an enigmatic look on her face. At one point, she began to talk about her personal life, revealing details of a difficult past. She mentioned how life had been unfair to her in her youth, leaving Adam and Stella puzzled about the purpose of the conversation. Adam, sensing there was something deeper behind Lillian's words, asked her to be more explicit. "Mrs. Lillian, sorry, but I'm a bit confused. Can you explain why you invited us to dinner tonight?" Lillian sighed deeply, as if gathering courage, and stood up to get a photo album. Returning, she opened the album and showed a picture of herself from many years ago, visibly pregnant. Adam and Stella looked at the photo, still not understanding the context. "Where is the child?" asked Adam, trying to connect the dots. Lillian, with tears in her eyes, looked directly at Stella. "The child, she's here. It's you, Stella." Adam and Stella were shocked by the revelation. Stella looked at the photo and then at Lillian, trying to process the magnitude of those words. I'm your daughter?" asked Stella, her voice trembling with emotion. The revelation that she was Stella's mother was a bombshell, leaving everyone at the table in a state of shock. Adam, confused, expressed his disbelief. "This seems impossible, Lillian. Stella never knew her mother. How can you be sure that she is your daughter?" Stella, still trying to process the situation, looked alternately at Adam and Lillian, unable to formulate words. The idea that the woman sitting across from her could be her mother was something she had never imagined. Lillian, with tears welling up in her eyes, began to tell her story. "When I was young, I met Stella's father. He seemed like a good man, despite his problems with drinking. We were together and I became pregnant. But after Stella was born, he changed. He became aggressive, and on the day we left the hospital, he took her away. He disappeared without a trace." Everyone at the table listened in silence as Lillian continued. "I tried everything to find her. I hired investigators, spent fortunes, but it was as if they had evaporated. There were no traces, no clues that could lead me to my daughter." Stella, absorbing every word, felt a mix of emotions. Anger at her mother's absence in her life fought against understanding the pain and desperation that Lillian had gone through. "So, the man who raised me, he stole me from you?" asked Stella, her voice quivering with the magnitude of that revelation. Lillian nodded, tears now freely flowing. "Yes, Stella. He took the greatest treasure of my life away from me, and I spent all these years looking for you." Feeling the tension of the conversation, Stella, still stunned by the revelation, looked directly at Lillian and asked, "How can you be so sure that I am your daughter? Why only now?" Lillian, with a look of relief mixed with pain, answered, "When I first saw you at the event with Adam, something stirred inside me. A premonition I couldn't ignore. You have a mark on your hand, exactly like mine. That was the last physical sign I remembered of you." Lillian continued, her voice choked with emotion. "After that day, I asked an investigator, who I've worked with for years, to find out everything about you. The pieces began to fit together. He finally found your father. He was drunk on a street, a shadow of the man I once knew. The investigator approached him, offering to buy more drinks, and that's when he managed to get your father to talk. That's how he confessed everything, telling the truth about how he took you from me. The fact that you never went to school, him not working officially to stay hidden. He hadn't even made your documents. He was completely out of his mind, living in hiding, trying to erase any trace that could lead back to me." Stella listened in silence, absorbing every word, every detail. It was as if a veil was being slowly lifted from her life, revealing hidden truths she never imagined were possible. He led a life of hiding, Afraid of being found, and he kept me in that shadow with him, said Stella, understanding the magnitude of what Lillian was telling. Adam, looking between Stella and Lillian, expressed his amazement. It's an incredible story. Hard to believe all of this. With a voice choked by emotion, Stella said, I never imagined something like this could be happening in my life. It's a lot to take in. Lillian, with tear-filled eyes, agreed, I know, my dear, it's a shock for all of us. She then added, despite everything he did, I arranged for your father to be taken to a care facility. There he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and will spend the rest of his life there. Adam, trying to better understand the situation, asked, You did that even after everything he did to you and to Stella? Lillian sighed deeply and responded, Yes, despite everything, he is a sick human being deserving of compassion. I spent years very angry at him, but today, seeing my daughter here in front of me, the happiness I feel is overwhelming. I can't think of anything bad from here on out. Stella looked at Lillian, a feeling of gratitude mixed with the confusion in her heart. Thank you for that, Lillian. I'm still trying to understand everything, but I appreciate that you took care of him. Despite everything he did to me, he's still my father. After these revelations and emotional encounters, Stella's life changed radically. She began visiting Lillian's house regularly, and the two made efforts to build the relationship they had lost. During one of her frequent visits to Lillian's house, Stella felt the joy of a new beginning. In a moment of intimate conversation, Lillian expressed her wishes for Stella's future. You've always been interested in studying more, haven't you, Stella? She asked, serving tea on the spacious house's porch. Stella, with a hopeful glint in her eyes, replied, Yes, I've always dreamed of studying architecture, but I never had the opportunity. Lillian smiled warmly. Well, I think it's time to make that dream come true. I want you to enroll in the best architecture school in the country. I will take care of everything. Stella was speechless for a moment, moved. Would you do that for me? I don't even know how to thank you, she said, tears of gratitude forming in her eyes. Lillian reached across the table and held Stella's hand. After everything we've lost, it's the least I can do, and there's more, Lillian continued. I'm building a room for Hannah here at the house. I will be there for every moment of her growth, something I unfortunately missed with you. Stella, now openly crying, felt a mix of happiness and relief. That means so much to me, Lillian. Hannah will love having a grandmother like you. In one of the many warm encounters between Stella and Lillian, the conversation took a deeply emotional turn. While Hannah played in the garden, Lillian confided in Stella, My biggest dream after finding you would be to be called Mother by you, but I understand that all this is very recent and I respect your time. I will do whatever I can to deserve that title. Stella, touched by Lillian's words, responded sincerely, You are already doing so much, Lillian. I appreciate every gesture. I'm sure we will become even closer. As time passed, their relationship naturally and organically strengthened. Stella made regular visits to Lillian's house, where Hannah loved spending time. The little girl, completely comfortable in Lillian's presence, filled the house with her laughter and joy, creating a family atmosphere that had long been absent in the lives of Lillian and Stella. Several years passed, and with Stella's architecture studies nearing completion, the big day of graduation finally arrived. Having faced many challenges and overcome numerous adversities, she was about to celebrate a significant milestone in her life. The graduation ceremony was packed with teachers, family members, and friends, all gathered to witness Stella's success. As she walked down the aisle toward the stage, Stella felt a mix of pride and gratitude. Her eyes scanned the audience, looking for three special people. Her husband, who had always supported her unconditionally, her father-in-law, who had become a constant father figure in her life, and of course Lillian, her biggest supporter in architecture. Stepping onto the stage, Stella looked out at the audience and began her speech. Today I'm here not just because of my own efforts, but also thanks to the invaluable support of some very special people, she said, her voice full of emotion. She continued, My husband, who has always stood by my side, encouraging me to reach my goals. My father-in-law, who welcomed me as a daughter and gave me strength in difficult times. Then, her eyes found Lillian, and she paused for a moment before saying, And of course, my dear mother, Lillian. Mom, you gave me more than a chance to study. You gave me a home, love, and the family I always wished for. Stella's words deeply touched everyone present, but especially Lillian, who could not contain her tears. She covered her face with her hands, moved by hearing the word Mom from Stella. When Stella finished her speech, Lillian was visibly moved, tears streaming down her face. Stella's words, calling her mother, touched her heart in a way she had never experienced. She felt a wave of love, gratitude, and a profound sense of fulfillment. The years of searching, the pain of separation, and the uncertainty had finally given way to a moment of pure joy and connection. After the ceremony ended, Lillian approached Stella, away from the hustle and bustle of the graduation ceremony. Tears shimmered in Lillian's eyes as she began to speak, her voice choked with emotion. "My dear daughter, for so many years my heart was incomplete. A vital part of me was lost. I always knew deep inside that this day would come, the day I could finally see you grow. See the incredible woman you have become." Stella, still absorbing the intensity of the moment, listened attentively, clutching her mother's hands between her own. Lillian continued, "When you were taken from me, a somber silence took over my life. I fought every day not just to find you, but to keep the flame of hope alive. And today here, seeing you as a graduate so strong and radiant that hope has turned into reality." There was a gentleness in Lillian's voice as she spoke about the years of separation. "All these years, I imagined what it would be like to hug you again, to touch your face, to laugh and cry with you. I missed so many moments, so many milestones that a mother should share with her daughter. But now looking at you, I see that every tear and every prayer was worth it. You are my miracle, Stella." Stella, moved by the depth of her mother's words, whispered, "Mom, I missed you every day, even without knowing who you were. There was an emptiness, a space that nothing could fill until today." Lillian nodded, her own emotions mirrored in her daughter's eyes. "I know, my daughter, and no matter the years we lost, we will create new memories together. Life has given us a second chance, and I will be here for every step you take." The two embraced tightly, a hug that sealed years of distance and solidified their relationship. "You completed me in a way I never imagined possible," whispered Lillian. Stella, looking at Lillian, responded, "Mum, you've shown me the true meaning of family and love. I am so grateful for everything." They left the graduation ceremony hand in hand, feeling renewed and filled with hope for the future. Both knew that from that moment on their lives would be immensely happier. Their story was a testament to the fact that maternal love overcomes all barriers, and that a mother never gives up on her child no matter what life throws in their way. If you've enjoyed this tale, I encourage you to show your appreciation by hitting the like button and become part of our community by subscribing to the channel. Your encouragement motivates us to keep delivering exciting stories nearly every day. Make sure you don't miss the next incredible story that is currently being displayed on your screen. We deeply appreciate your support. See you soon.